Welcome. I'm going to ask Tim Groves, the chair of the Meadville Area Water Authority Board, to welcome you. Tim?
In my limited role that Frank let me do, I'm Tim Groves, chairman of the Meadville Area Water Authority, and on behalf of the board members, we certainly appreciate you guys taking the time to come, and we certainly hope we learn quite a bit tonight. Without much other ado, Frank Coppola, it's yours.
Thank you. Next slide, Abe, please. Why we're here tonight? The board has been tasked with the decision to whether to fluoridate our water or not to fluoridate our water. And that's why we're here to discuss that night, to have a community discussion about that. Next slide, please. Our purpose is a discussion to gain knowledge, information regarding both sides, pro and con, and we're going to allow members of the audience also to speak. We have somewhere between 15 and 20 people who have signed up to speak. If you want to speak but you have not signed up as yet, please go over to the table and do so. Thank you. Next slide, please. My name is Frank Coppola, and I am your moderator. My job is to make sure we follow the rules, make sure that each side has a fair opportunity to present their respective cases, and that you have an opportunity to listen without being interrupted. I need to tell you this. Mike Crowley is here, right? Mike, would you stand up for a second? All right. See, you put me in the front page. This is payback, buddy. All right. Mike has done a wonderful job covering this event tonight. Thank you, Mike. Now, he also indicated on the front page of the newspaper my age. You did, didn't you? Yeah, I was on the front page. Anyway, I'm not 72, I just turned 73, okay? Now, I would like, see, I didn't expect to make it to 73, so I'd like a round of applause for making it to 73. Thank you. All right. Next slide, please, Abe. Our agenda. A community discussion, presentations from both sides. We will allow time for rebuttals. After the rebuttals, we will open for public comment for those people who have registered to do so. Next slide, please. If you are not speaking tonight and you would like further input, there are a couple other ways to do that, and you'll see that up on the screen at this point in time. You can write letters to that address, to the Meadville Area Water Authority, emails to that particular email address, or the website, and you go to the website, there'll be a toggle that says Contact Us. And you press that and you'll see it's pretty self-explanatory at that point in time. In any case, I'll put this back up on the screen later tonight in case you don't have a chance to write things down, okay? Each of you, next slide please, Abe. Each of you has a vested interest in this issue tonight, and hopefully when you leave this room, you're going to have a better understanding of both sides of the issue. And I understand, and as the board understands, that this can be an emotional issue. I ask you to park those emotions at this point in time. And I ask you for certain behaviors tonight so that we can get through this without interruption. We want your input, and we'll get that through the speakers after the presentations and the rebuttals. Next slide, please. So I need your help. We want to make sure that we give you and the Meadville Area Water Authority Board equal access to information. And we want both sides to be presented without interruption. And then we want to hear what some of the audience members have to say. We do have some very qualified people that are going to present tonight, and we'll make those introductions in just a minute. Okay? Next page, please. I ask you to practice civility tonight. Please be courteous, please be polite, please have good manners, please be considerate, please be respectful. We want a professional atmosphere. Please cooperate. I ask you this. Do not react while the speakers are speaking and making their presentations. At the end of their presentation, certainly you may clap. That's nothing wrong with that. When they're making their rebuttals, I ask you to do the same thing. Okay? So, jeering, next slide, please. Here's what we don't want. Here's what I ask you to cooperate with. I'll let you read. The last statement is fairly simple. It's not a pep rally. I didn't want to say this, but I'm going to. I reserve the right, as the moderator, to stop this meeting at any point if it gets out of hand. I reserve the right to interrupt any speaker if they get out of hand. I pray to God I don't have to do that, so please don't put me in that position. Okay? Now, question. Will you cooperate? Thank you. I appreciate that. Raise your hand if you're going to cooperate. Sir, you didn't raise your hand, all right? I was pointing at Dick Astor. I was pointing. Next slide. Here's our presenters. Dr. Johnson from Meadville Medical Center. She's the Chief Medical Officer at Meadville Medical Center. She'll introduce her guest speakers. And Dr. Chris Knapp on my right, and he is in private practice, chiropractic practice, and he also is the chair of the Clean Water Meadville group. Am I correct with that? Okay. So why don't we at this time, Denise, would you like to introduce your people at this point in time? Sure. Here's it. You want this or you want to go ahead? Okay.
Thank you. With me tonight is Dr. Johnny Johnson. He's a pediatric dentist from Palm Harbor, Pinellas County, Florida. He has a Master of Science degree from the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, and his research was the investigation of the fluoride content in infant formulas in the U.S. His research involved extensive literature reviews of water fluoridation and fluoride to complete his Master of Science degree. Dr. Johnson's first involvement in community water fluoridation challenges was when the Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners in Florida voted to cease water fluoridation in 2011 to over 700,000 residents. He and the community were successful in returning water fluoridation 15 months later. I also have with me Dr. Steve Slott. He was a general dentist for over 33 years in Burlington, North Carolina in private practice, consisting mainly of treatment of Medicaid recipients, low-income and indigent patients. He is the founder of a large portable free dental program in North Carolina. It's called North Carolina Missions of Mercy, which conducted treatments in North Carolina, but also in 5 other states. He did that for 6 years. And those are the 2 other doctors who will be with me tonight.
Dr. Knapp, would you like to introduce her? I have a handheld here if you'd like.
Okay, that'd be fine. Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'd like to, can you hear me? I don't need it. I'd like to introduce Dr. Paul Connett. He's a retired professor of chemistry specializing in environmental chemistry and toxicology. He was a professor of chemistry at St. Lawrence University. He has a BA from Cambridge University and a PhD from Dartmouth College. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Knapp. I'd like to also introduce members of the Meadville Area Water Authority Board. You've met Tim Grove, who's the chair. To his left is Hal Tubbs. Hal, would you raise your hand, please? All right. To Tim's right is Mark Gilday. Dennis Fenton, Dr. Dennis Fenton. John Fulmer, and Solicitor Ted Watts. Thank you. Next slide, please, Abe. Excuse me. Okay. Next slide, Abe. Each side will have 30 minutes to make presentation. You'll see me during the presentations give them cues as to how far along in the time limit they are. At the end of their 30 minutes, the first one, then we'll have the next group go for 30 minutes. We'll recess at that point in time so that they have a chance to prepare their rebuttals respectively. We'll come back together, and then each side will have 10 minutes for a rebuttal. At that point in time, we'll open it up then to the speakers who have registered at the table over here who want to say something tonight. We have a hot mic for you so you can speak. You'll have 3 minutes. You can ask questions or you can give opinion or both. If you ask questions, please be cognizant that we want you to ask the question and get the answers within 3 minutes, and both sides get a chance to answer the questions. Okay? So I'll reiterate that as we move into the meeting, all right? Now, I need two trustworthy people. I'm smiling, okay? Now, we have two councilmen here. You knew I was going to do this, didn't you? Come on up here, guys, all right? John? John? Now, I want one to do it, the other one to watch it to make sure you get it right, okay? Two pieces of paper. I want you to put a 1 on one piece of paper and a 2 on the other piece of paper, and then fold the paper up.
You have a hat?
I got a hat. Now, the one that picks 1 will get a choice of whether to go first or not. Okay? Ladies first?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Don't open it yet, okay? All right. Dr. Johnson, what do you have?
I have 1.
Do you choose to go first or second?
I'll go first.
Okay, you're on.
Okay, good evening. Well, thank you all for coming out here tonight, and I really appreciate the opportunity to address you to request that the Meadville Area Water Authority adjust the level of fluoride in our drinking water from the current 0.2 parts per million up to 0.7 parts per million to the level that is optimal for dental health. I'm an OBGYN physician who was in private practice here and then became an administrator at Meadville Medical Center. For the past 20 years, I have worked and lived in Meadville and have been honored to take care of patients in my practice. While I was practicing OBGYN, I was often asked by dentists, our local dentists, who were also treating my pregnant patients, what could they have for pain? What are they allowed to have for antibiotics? And I saw a lot of patients who were pregnant who had very poor dental health. Before I came here to Meadville, I was in Tennessee and practiced there, saw many pregnant women, but really not to the extent that I saw here with dental disease. It's also important to note that the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists recommend that pregnant women have access to water that is optimally fluoridated during their pregnancies. Now, as an administrator, I see a large number of patients seeking care for dental issues in our emergency department as well as in our clinics. I've seen the statistics that rate Meadville and Crawford County well behind other areas within our state and in our nation for dental health. From these two perspectives, I've been concerned. I'm a physician, and besides practicing medicine, we also advocate for the health and the well-being of our patients and those we serve. As a community hospital, we have invested in dental services as well as education, but there's more that we can do. Community water fluoridation is a well-established public health measure that has been proven to decrease the incidence of cavities by 1/4 or 25%. That is significant. Even with the use of toothpaste with fluoride, the benefit of using fluoridated water is additive. And studies have shown that stopping fluoridation, even while continuing to use toothpaste with fluoride, does result in increased cavities. Community water fluoridation is easy, it's reliable, it doesn't depend on someone doing something regularly, repetitively. Even with our best intentions, most of us aren't able to complete a course of antibiotics as directed. But community water fluoridation doesn't require that you have that discipline. The science on effectiveness and safety of fluoride is clear. I believe that most of us use toothpaste with fluoride, and in our school system, our local school system here, the vast majority of parents request that their children receive those fluoride tablets. And I believe that the argument is not whether or not fluoride in the water is safe and effective, but whether or not we should choose whether we get it. I do believe that we should exercise our right to choose. But in doing that, we should not deny a well-established, safe, and effective benefit to others. Many of us in this room could opt out of fluoridation if we wanted to. It can be easily filtered, and it's really not as expensive as some have claimed. But those who would benefit the most are not having their voices heard. We collected more than 1,000 signatures of customers of this water authority and over 200 postcards asking for community water fluoridation. But there's still those children under 18, those in poor health, those with little resources, and the list goes on. Denying them the benefit of community water fluoridation is like saying, I know that this could benefit you, but because you don't brush and floss regularly or avoid sugary drinks, you deserve to have poor dental health. This goes against what I believe as a citizen of Meadville and certainly as a practitioner of medicine. I encourage you to think of others, realizing that you can certainly choose for yourself. For all these reasons, I ask that the Water Authority approve a fluoridation program for Meadville. I'm going to turn it over now to Dr. Johnson, who will continue the presentation.
Thank you all. My name is Johnny Johnson. I'm a pediatric dentist from Palm Harbor, Florida. I had a nice little bicycle accident in 2002 and became disabled to practice clinical dentistry. 2009 I had to stop because my right wrist is fused. I can't bend it any longer. So it just happened to be that in 2011 that my county commission decided to take up the subject of water fluoridation on the spur of the moment during a meeting on budgets, which is interesting time to take it up. So anyhow, the county commission, after 4.5 hours of hearing people speak and argue against fluoridation, used the arguments that those who oppose fluoridation claiming that the CDC is corrupt and they are politically motivated, and I can't even begin to tell you the number of other claims. They voted 4-3 to cease water fluoridation for 700,000 people. With my background and my time that I have put into research and publishing 2 papers on community water fluoridation in peer-reviewed literature, I was angry, and I just would not let it stand. 700,000 of my kids and my families and my adults, my own family as well, living in Pinellas County, doing something that's not based on science, but based on emotion and based on own opinions. So I went on to represent those that were going to refluoridate the county, got asked to lead the effort, and 15 months later, we had it back. And 3 out of the 4 who voted against water fluoridation were voted out of office because of that. 65-35, the silent majority spoke up and said, you're not going to rob our families of fluoridation. So that's my point of beginning on this. I really am sharing this with you so that you all will understand that this is something that is used widely as a way to get communities to stop fluoridation. Stories against it. It is not based in the science. The science is crystal clear that water fluoridation, it works, it's safe and effective, causes no adverse health effects in anyone, and produces huge savings in the healthcare system and people having to spend money on teeth that did not need to get cavities in the first place. What are the health benefits for cavity of water fluoridation? Well, cavities are reduced for all. No one says you don't have to brush your teeth. You don't have to eat a good diet. We all know that. This is just one of the things, like Dr. Johnson said, you drink the water, you reap the benefits. If you don't change a single behavior of how you brush, nothing else in your life, it's not a crutch, it's a benefit. We all get 25% less cavities over our lifetime, and adults benefit more than children do. I know that may sound funny, but as we are older, as we are adults longer than we are children. As we have gum recession occur, our roots begin to get exposed, and cavities happening on our root surface, which is softer than the enamel, is very, very aggressive. And I will tell you that is one of the number one reasons that adults lose their permanent teeth is because of root surface cavities. Water fluoridation helps to reduce that, to have less cavities on your roots, extremely beneficial. Systematic reviews have shown time and time again in up-to-date reviews that continue to go on that water fluoridation is still needed. When you begin water fluoridation in a community, you will reduce cavities by almost 30%. When you start here, within 5 years, you'll have 30% less cavities just by drinking the water. On the opposite side, when you remove fluoridation from a community, even though we're all brushing with toothpaste with fluoride and everything else that we normally do, you're going to have increases rapidly up to around 17–18%. Calgary in Canada stopped in 2011. Their cavities are skyrocketing. They are skyrocketing. And they are in a move to refluoridate. Another community that happened in is Antigua, Wisconsin, several years ago. Same thing. Cavities began to increase greatly to pre-fluoridation levels, and they voted it back in. Don't let that happen to you. Vote it in and keep it. The cavities are disproportionately distributed to those that are disadvantaged. About 20% of us get most of the cavities. I was one of those kids that grew up without cavities and have a mouthful of crowns, root canals, and extractions, and it's not fun. But when you look at Meadville, you look at your poverty level here, that's your most disadvantaged families. They have cavities more than others, but we all get them. I don't care what walk of life or what income level you have. That means that 1 out of every 4 people you walk by on the street coming in here today is living in poverty in this city. And that is huge. It's larger than the average for Pennsylvania. Why do cavities matter? It's the #1 chronic disease of childhood. The #1 chronic disease. It's 5 times more common than asthma and 20 times more common than obesity. We talk about obesity. Cavities are the #1 chronic childhood disease that we have in this country. People die from it. The one gentleman on the top right was a truck driver, had an abscessed tooth. He died. He was from California because that infection went to his brain. Below him is a gentleman that made national news several years ago, Diamante driver, same thing. Abscessed tooth, went backwards with a vein that's in your head to right to the brain, died. We've all seen kids that look like this young lady that's been beat up. She hasn't been beat up. That's an infection in an upper molar and it's ready, her eyes closing. Within a few hours or days, she would be dead if she did not receive extensive antibiotics. It's also painful, tough to focus in school, miss days from work, on and on. If anybody's had a cavity with an abscess or an infection, pain, and I have, it does captivate your every thought. Community water fluoridation is effective in reducing cavities for everyone of at least 25%, no matter if of your socioeconomic status, your age, your level of education, your race, your ethnicity, or your access to dental care. The savings are as $1 invested in fluoridation gives you return on investment of $38. I know with the economy right now, if any of us had a return on investment like that and that we could have in our retirement accounts, we'd be jumping on it. It also reduces the amount of pain and suffering that people have in tooth loss, as well as inability to go to work, inability to focus in school, and it has resulted in over 95 million hours of missed school. That was a net as of 1999. 51 million hours of school in this country because of cavities with children. Water fluoridation is widely supported. And I'm not putting the medical and dental groups up here first. Everybody says this is a medical or a dental issue. National Head Start, National Healthy Mothers and Healthy Babies Coalition, Child Welfare League, the U.S. Department of Defense and Veterans Affairs, and the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Dental Association, the CDC, Mayo Clinic, and the World Health Organization all support water fluoridation as safe and effective. Within the past 7 years, recent studies have shown that water fluoridation on top of toothpaste and fluoride varnishes and fluoride rinses continues to reduce cavities. And again, those that can't afford to purchase insurance, those are the families that are going to benefit the most from this. But you cannot deny each of us in here, adults especially, the ability to have that benefit of reduced cavities. Again, like I said, like you can see on this pretty tooth up here, that wonderful root cavity. And I'm going to tell you that I had great skills with my hands before it was messed up. I couldn't fix that. We put a filling in it, it would fall out. I guarantee you, you're going to lose that tooth. And that is because that part of your tooth is soft, cavities are very aggressive, and if you were a dentist, you would know that this stuff goes on all the time. We hate it. Water fluoridation helps to prevent it. How does fluoride work? Well, fluoridation works in two ways. One is from the outside of your tooth, and that's called that's called topical. So topical ways are toothpaste, topical ways are fluoride varnishes, and it also includes water fluoridation, not when you drink it, but when it gets into your bloodstream and it comes out into your saliva and constantly coat your teeth 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's that low amount coating our teeth all day long that helps prevent cavities. It also works in children when their teeth are developing. It gets inside the teeth and it makes the teeth harder from the inside out, so you have a dual benefit. So within cavities being prevented, excuse me, I'm sorry, looking at the minutes I had left. Within cavities being prevented, you've got a dual impact. You've got fluoride hardening your tooth from inside out. You've got toothpaste on the outside of it, or fluoride rinses or fluoride varnishes. And you have the saliva that's constantly bathing those teeth with a low amount of fluoride that helps to prevent cavities. 25% less cavities for everybody over your lifetime. And as a practicing dentist who looks at x-rays, I will tell you there's a difference between 25% cavities that you see in a public health study, which is where they look in your mouth with a flashlight and look around, and that's it. They're looking for holes. When we look at teeth in the clinical setting, you came to me with your child, non-fluoridated area, fluoridated area. I could tell you which area you grew up in. You would have more white spot early cavities on your teeth. You would have bigger holes between your teeth if you came from a non-fluoridated area. We will tell you, as clinical dentist, I practiced 30 years. I had at least 200,000 patient visits in my office over those 30 years. I am a pediatric dentist. I see these kids from their very first tooth until some of them, God knows, they don't leave when they're 18. There's 26 and 27 bringing their children in. I know what happens, I know how it happens, and the research shows that it does prevent cavities for everyone. And I worked in an area that turned out to be very highly income, a very high income area, just the way the county grew. And these people were supposedly getting the best care, doing their home care. Didn't happen. Everybody gets cavities. Still happens. Thank God it's less. Adults, again, you benefit from fluoride as was not necessarily thought of before. Studies have shown, again, that you not only benefit from cavity reductions on the crowns of your teeth, but hugely on the roots of your teeth. There are no alternatives to water fluoridation. There are none. At 0.7 milligrams per liter, which is the current recommendation, it used to be a range of 0.7 to 1.2 parts per million. It started in 1962, that was the range. Now it's 0.7 parts per million. And the reason for that is that it used to be that we did not have climate control from north to south, east to west. What does that mean? It's not climate change. We didn't have air conditioning in our cars, in our schools, in our malls, and everywhere we went. And that's from Florida. I went and sweated in my classrooms. Up here, you didn't always have heating and everything in all of your communities. Water intakes are almost equal everywhere in the country now. Over the last 15 to 20 years, extensive studies have been done by Steve Levy at the University of Iowa. The same cohort, he goes to the hospital and gets these kids and follows them through for 15, 20 years, and water intakes are the same no matter where you are in the country. You need a certain amount of water in your body, you drink that amount of water in your body. Children drink the same at certain ages, adults drink the same at certain ages. It's not like you're going to drink 20 gallons a day because you happen to live in Florida. and 0 or 1 gallon because you're up here. We all intake the same amounts of water. Fluoridation is the closest thing to a magic bullet that we have. Fluoridated toothpaste is not a replacement, it's an adjunct. You need both of them. It's like when we used to have seat belts. Have seat belts in our car, and it's wonderful. When we got airbags, we didn't stop using seat belts. Both of them together are beneficial. This is the same way with toothpaste and water fluoridation. Fluoride supplements, as Dr. Johnson said, it's horrible. You get about a 30% compliance with supplements or antibiotics. You got to buy it, you got to have a way to get to the store to get it. And I will tell you, a bottle on my table, my wife was fastidious. She hated a bottle on the table. A bottle that was supposed to last 4 months at my house lasted 8. So it's even in a dentist home, it is not easy to continue to do that. It is something that you have to keep up with. Fluoridate the water, you don't think about it. No alternative works as well or as cost effective as water fluoridation. So there are no health risks of water fluoridation, period. Not a single one. Expert committees and scientific reviews state that evidence does not support an association between adjusted community water fluoridation and any adverse health effect or systemic disorder. The weight of the science is on the side of water fluoridation being safe and effective. No respected, credible scientific group in the world opposes water fluoridation. None. Not a single one. Does that remote work? Microphone?
Yeah.
Could I use that, please? Sure. Well, with no credible science being conducted in communities of community water fluoridation.
Where is it, Dr. Johnson?
There's one here.
Okay. Hello? Okay. With no conducted credible science being done in water fluoridated communities, where do our opponents go to spread their fear? Because that's what happens. We don't have something we can hang our hats on. We start going elsewhere. Well, Dr. Conant has used many times the discussion of IQ. He used studies that have come out from China in areas where water is endemically high in fluoride. This is not water fluoridation. This is fluoride levels that are several times higher, 5 to 10 times higher or more than they are in water fluoridation. Water fluoridation is 0.7 milligrams per liter. This is the water that comes through in India, China, Iran, and Mongolia. Those are some areas where it is very, very high. And they looked at these studies. These Harvard researchers did a meta-analysis, which means they looked at studies that were done in China. The authors, Dr. Gran Jean on the top right and Mana Choi, all looked at those studies, and they concluded that those studies had some really hefty open areas of problems with them. They were not really well done studies, 15 people in a study, I mean, on and on with problems. But when the opponents began to use this as a reason not to stop fluoridation in Wichita, Kansas in 2012, Dr. Gran Jean and Choi signed a letter that said you should not use this study that we did, this actual meta-analysis, not a research study, to not fluoridate your water. You should not use our study because it does not apply to fluoride levels that you have in the U.S. Further, Dr. Gran Jean sent an email to a water operator in Florida, and he said, we do not wish to take sides on water fluoridation because people were trying to get the community to stop fluoridating. A health report from Dr. Conant's home state who investigated his claims and reached the following conclusion, that Dr. Conant often relies on studies of fluoride use in other countries where concentrations are significantly higher, and one of his main assertions was examined by PolitiFact as well as just recently by PolitiFact, and the assertion was found false. The other group was Snopes.com. Examples of scientific organizations that have reviewed and rejected the Fluoride Action Network's claims are, and the ones in blue are ones that Dr. Conant spoke before. They have rejected it recently at the Environmental Protection Agency, the National Research Council in 2006, the Forum on Fluoridation in Ireland in 2002, Community Preventive Services Task Force, the California Office of Environmental Health Hazard and Assessment, health agencies in Australia, Ireland, New Zealand, and the UK. The EPA denied the petition that they just filed on February 17th. They denied it, and the reasons it's stated in the denial by the EPA were that many studies that they were using, the critics of fluoridation were using, were previously found to pose a very serious overall risk of bias because of the methodology or data reporting. Secondly, they explained that it denied the request primarily because the EPA concluded that the petition has not set forth a scientifically defensible basis to conclude that any persons have suffered neurotoxic harm as a result of exposure to fluoride through water fluoridation. This is one graph that I will quickly go through that shows the fluoridation opponents will say, well, fluoride actually, the cavities were actually coming down in countries all across the world without fluoridation. This is about the time, this was a World Health Organization data points for countries. About the time that fluoridated water began, or fluoridated toothpaste began to be used, they started coming down. An anti-fluoridation researcher took those lines and straightened them out. Well, that looks nice, but you can't do that in science. You can't make straight lines like that. In Ireland, they did the study, and they showed that people without water fluoridation were at a level here in number of cavities. Added water fluoridation, a 25% reduction. Dr. Khanna tried to use the argument of fluoride being an enzyme inhibitor when he was in Brooksville, Florida in 2013. The head pediatric endocrinologist in the United States spoke out and said she was appalled at this statement by Dr. Khanna that claimed that drinking fluoridated water causes clinically significant harm to the endocrine system. It does not. Dr. Khanna has spoken extensively about this book, the Fluoride 2006 Fluoride Review by the EPA, and it's regarding fluoride naturally in the water at 4 parts per million. And I will tell you that there will be more discussion on that when he speaks. The health goal was that of any contaminant in the water is that it cannot cause an adverse health effect and the margin of safety is adequate. Well, the 12-member committee considered 3 different points at which they found that all the literature they reviewed over a 3.5-year period could be looked at as an issue to those that drink water 4 milligrams per liter or higher. And that was severe fluorosis, skeletal fluorosis, and bone fractures. And John Dewey, who is the toxicologist that was in charge of this group, said he did not see any valid reason scientifically for fearing adverse health conditions from water fluoridation. So, no problems with anything else. Was there an issue with the teeth? Yes, and that was that at 4 parts per million, you have it at 7, that's 6 points, you have it at 0.7, that's 6 times higher than you would have in your water. You got severe fluorosis, which we can discuss later. And at 2 milligrams, 2 parts per million, it went away. You would be at 1/3 of that level in your water when you fluoridate it. They're claiming that mother's milk does not contain fluoride because it's protecting the baby. Mother Nature knows best. Well, Mother Nature also does not put in vitamin D, vitamin K, and enough iron. So to say that mother's milk is complete and does not need anything else in it, and fluoride is being protected because Mother Nature knows best, would be to say, let's let babies have problems with brittle bones, clotting, and anemia. No, we have doctors that Mother Nature has given brains to figure out how to save our babies. And that's why we do this. They're giving those supplements within a short time after birth. But yet, it's either a misleading statement or it's one done purposely. I also want to close with a discussion that Dr. Khanna makes about the Cochrane Oral Health Group. Cochrane Oral Health Group is a group that, the Cochrane Oral Health Group is a group that reviews scientific literature, and they came out with a report in 2015 on water fluoridation. He likes to state that they do not find water fluoridation to be effective today. Well, that is incorrect. I traveled to London in summer of 2015, and I met with those Cochrane Oral Health Group folks. I discussed with them about their report. Their report entirely was about, it's the same as before and after. Here's penicillin. Let's give it to a group that's sick and not sick and see what happens. That's the type of studies they were looking for. Well, those studies aren't done anymore. We can't deny somebody a proven safe public health measure. It's the same with water fluoridation. They use randomized controlled trials primarily. That's what we did not have randomized controlled trials. We had observational ones to find out that smoking caused lung cancer. Sexually transmitted diseases were causing infections, and that alcohol was causing liver disease. Does anyone say we need randomized controlled trials now to go back and find out if smoking is bad for us? No. It's observational. You see a problem, you find the causation of it, and then it's done. Well, they did find these amounts of cavities that were reduced, but most of these studies were old because the newer studies don't meet that same before and after. Nobody does that anymore. I can't tell the community next to you that's not fluoridated that wants to. No, you guys wait. Let's let it happen here in Meadville and see what happens to you all, how many more cavities you get. That is unethical. To close, even the Cochrane Oral Health Group said that randomized controlled trials are not appropriate for water fluoridation. That is in their report. You're welcome to read it, and I can supply it to you if you'd like. Lastly, the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force, which gives recommendations to communities. They're an independent group, just like the NRC, non-paid, just like I am, and Dr. Slott. The Cochrane Oral Health Group, the same one that came out with the report in 2015, are the ones that reviewed the literature that group came out with, the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force on fluoridation, and they found strong evidence and recommended water fluoridation for everyone. Thank you all very much. Please fluoridate your water.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Dr. Johnson? Dr. Knapp? I'll give you a 20-minute sign,
Okay.
okay? And then 15, 10, 5, and 1.
Yeah.
He's doing
Can you
10,
do
I'm
10?
doing 20. He needs a 10 minute.
And is
Yeah,
that-
I'm gonna show you a sign that says you have 20 minutes left, which means that your 10 minutes has been, is that all right?
Well, I'm only speaking for 10, so. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Hi. Nice to see you folks here tonight. My name's Chris Knapp. I'm a local chiropractor, citizen of Meadville. This is how I got involved with the fluoride issue. I was walking up the steps of the YMCA and I saw a paper box, and the box said that the local Smiles group wanted to add fluoride to our water. And it disturbed me. I remembered back in the 70s when my dad was involved with this issue, and he advised us, if this ever comes up again, look into it. And I did. And here's the marker that I used. And I just came up with it indiscriminately. It wasn't planned. 8%. I said, I'll get involved with this issue. I knew about dental fluorosis. If more than 8% of our community is affected by fluorosis, I'll get involved. Well, 41% of our 12 to 15-year-olds in the United States have some form of dental fluorosis. So that exceeded that 8%, and that's what got me involved in this. Now, tonight, the proponents have a big task ahead of them here. It's not an easy one. In order to justify forcing people to drink water containing fluoride, they have to provide compelling scientific evidence that swallowing fluoride actually lowers tooth decay by a significant amount. They also have to prove that swallowing fluoride over a lifetime is safe for everyone, including bottle-fed babies, people with poor nutrition, people with kidney problems, diabetics, people who exercise a lot, drink more water than those who don't. And what I mean by this is peer-reviewed primary studies, and especially randomized control studies. After 70 years, there's not been one randomized control trial demonstrating that swallowing fluoride lowers tooth decay. You saw a lot of endorsements. Fluoride proponents cite a long list of professional bodies, dental associations, government agencies that endorse water fluoridation. But endorsements aren't science, they're opinions. And those opinions are only as good as the science that's mobilized to support them. Make a careful note tonight of any primary research studies that are cited by either side. Fluoridation proponents will advise you to start fluoridation, but they will accept no liability for any harm that it may cause. In other words, their recommendations are hollow as far as liability is concerned. Dummy reviews. Beware of reviews that are conducted by hand-picked pro-fluoride panels. Here's some example of dummy reviews. The 2002 Irish Fluoridation Forum, the 2007 Australian review, the 2011 healthcare review that they did in Canada, the 2016 Australian review. Let's talk about the Health Canada panel. In the case of the 2011 Health Canada review, they relied on a panel of 6 experts, 4 of which were dentists and well-known pro-fluoride advocates. There is a long history of bad science as it pertains to fluoride. Trials were begun in 1945 in Canada and the United States. But in 1950, before any trials had been completed or any solid health studies conducted, the United States Public Health Services endorsed fluoridation. How can you do that? Between 1950 and 1952, nearly every major dental and medical organization in the United States had endorsed fluoride, still without any published science. These endorsements were not scientific in the 1950s, and they are not scientific today. Now, what these endorsements represent today is how really difficult it is for bureaucrats to change their minds once they've adopted a policy. According to Dr. Conant, when policy is king, science becomes a slave. And that's flipped upside down and it's backwards. What we should do is look at science, determine our policy, not have the science fit the policy, which is what happens today. It's particularly shocking when civil servants stoop to using outright propaganda tactics. Now, the pictures that you're going to see here appeared on a postcard in Queensland, Australia, one day prior to a vote on mandatory water fluoridation. Here's the first picture. Teeth exposed to fluoridated water. Nice picture. The next one you're going to see are teeth when you don't use fluoride. (2007). The picture on the right is a picture of baby bottle tooth decay. Now note, there's no difference in the prevalence of baby bottle tooth decay between fluoridated and non-fluoridated communities. Note, the top teeth look awful, but the bottom teeth look pretty good. Now, why is that? Well, because when a baby's sucking on the bottle of soda or Kool-Aid with sugar in it, the top teeth are exposed to the sugar, but the tongue protects the bottom teeth. So that's why you see that picture. These kind of tactics really wouldn't be necessary if the science was on the promoter's side, but it's not. That's why after 7 years, there's been no detailed or documented response to the book, The Case Against Fluoride. And that was written by Dr. Connett, Dr. Beck, and Dr. Micklem. That's why the ADA has not updated its document Fluoride Facts for 12 years. This is why proponents will very seldom agree to publicly debate leading scientists opposed to fluoridation, like Dr. Connett. More propaganda. Could Dr. Johnny Johnson explain how the American Fluoridation Society calculated the following numbers in this figure, which was posted on his Facebook page? It says, did you know that if you drink, you would have to consume 43,190 liters of fluoridated water every day for 2 years before they start to feel any toxic effect at all? Now the problem with that is this is a lethal dose. It's not a toxic dose. Let me explain. The American Fluoridation Society is confusing lethal with toxic dose. Even so, the numbers are ridiculous. 43,190 liters times 0.7, 30,233 milligrams. That's 30 grams of fluoride. 5 is a lethal dose. This amount in 1 day would kill 6 people. I want to draw your attention to the bottom. It's outlined in red. It says, know the science. Thank you. So let's go back to the 50s. You'd have to, this is what they said in the 50s. You'd have to drink over 400 gallons of water containing 1 parts per million to receive a toxic dose. Such a large drink of water might kill you, of course, but water alone would do the job without any help from fluoride. So you see, they're using the same argument that they used in the 50s today, and it still doesn't, I hate to say it, hold water. Before any trial had been completed, they have switched from research mode to promotion mode and propaganda mode. These kind of misleading tactics have been used for over 60 years by those promoting fluoride. Over on the desk, there's 40 examples, and I hand out chapter 5 in Dr. Connett's book on the table. Please get those at the break. Am I done?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. I'd too like to thank you all for coming here tonight. I like the light blue shirts. I'm glad you're supporters of Cambridge University, where I attend, and the board, and Johnny Johnson and Steve Slott. As Joseph Joubert said, a Frenchman, it's better to debate an issue without resolving it than resolving it without debating it. So I applaud Johnny and Steve and Denise for debating this, and I hope that we can disagree without being disagreeable. But thank you most of all for you folks coming out tonight. As you've heard, I'm a retired professor of chemistry. I specialize in environmental chemistry and toxicology. I spent 21 years researching fluoride's toxicity. I didn't want to do it. My wife twisted my arm. I co-authored this book you've heard about. And the important thing here is I have 2 co-authors. This isn't my book. This is our book. Dr. James Beck, MD, PhD, a retired professor of physics. Spenning Micklem, a retired professor of biology. We made the arguments totally transparent. We documented everything. And after 7 years, we've had no scientific response to it. You can bet your bottom dollar, if the other side did this, put out a book called The Case for Fluoridation, within a few weeks, we would have mobilized our scientists, and we would have responded. Fluoride is not a nutrient. There's no such thing as fluoride deficiency. There's not one biochemical process that needs fluoride to function properly. The tooth decay is not caused by lack of fluoride. It's caused by too much sugar, a poor diet, and poor dental hygiene. Even fluoridation promoters admit that fluoride works, if it works at all, to lower tooth decay. It does it through a topical mechanism, not systemically. So why swallow it? Tooth decay and poverty. Most tooth decay, 80% in the United States, is concentrated in low-income families. Tooth decay is a function of poverty. Sadly, 80% of dentists refuse to treat children on Medicaid because the financial returns are too low. I'm glad to say that Steve Slott is here and he's an exception to that rule. He does treat them, or did treat them. While it's an appealing emotional argument to fluoridate water to help poor children, the last children who need to swallow fluoride are poor children, because fluoride's toxicity is made worse by poor diet. And don't forget that their low-income families can't afford those avoidance measures. You'll hear later that fluoride potentially lowers IQ. The last children in the United States who need their IQ lowered are children from low-income families. Fluoride is very toxic. It forms hydrogen bonds which underpin both the structure and function in biology. It forms complex ions with calcium and magnesium and many other important metals in the body. As a result of fluoride ion, interferes with many important biological functions. It inhibits many enzymes. The first opponents of fluoridation in the United States were biochemists, particularly enzyme chemists who won Nobel Prizes like James Sumner. It also switches on G proteins, which are important messaging systems. For more details of the toxicology, please review this article, Barbier and co-workers. Nature's defenses against mechanisms. Because fluoride is so toxic, throughout nature you'll see nature devising strategies to limit the exposure to fluoride. First of all, in bacteria, fluoride, the bacteria produce proteins which go in the membrane and pump out the fluoride. The same thing happens in some higher organisms. The work on this has been done by Ron Breaker at Yale University. In mammals, the first defense is to excrete as much of the fluoride out of the body as they can. About 50% of the fluoride you take in each day is excreted, much less for people with poor kidney function. The second defense, could you get me some water?
Yes, right here.
The second defense is to sequester the fluoride in the bone and the other calcifying tissues, to get it away from the blood, to get it away from the soft tissues. And nature protects the baby from fluoride by keeping the levels in breast milk very, very low. The level in breast milk is 0.004 parts per million. Now, who's right about this? Nature that experimented with the baby's first meal over millions of years, or a bunch of dentists from Chicago, the ADA? I put my money on nature. Nature knows that fluoride is very toxic, and she knows that the developing system of the baby is very fragile. So what water fluoridation does is to remove that protection. If a parent makes up formula with fluoridated tap water, that baby's going to get about 200 times more fluoride than nature intended, 200 times more than a mother breastfeeding. There are many health concerns. You've got a very, very one-sided and biased view of this document, the National Research Council of 2006. I testified before them. I'm glad to say that most of my testimony ended up being discussed in that book. But they make it clear there are many health concerns. Fluoride can damage the teeth when swallowed before the permanent teeth have erupted. In 2010, as Chris pointed out, the CDC admitted that 41% of all American children had some form of dental fluorosis. This is age 12 to 15, 41%. Here it is. 28.5% very mild, 8.6% mild, 3.6% moderate or severe. This is what mild dental fluorosis looks like, up to 50% of the enamel impacted, moderate and severe, 3.6% of American kids affected. 100% of the enamel is affected. That is not caused by water alone. It's caused by total fluoride dose. And I'm afraid the proponents of fluoridation constantly and self-servingly confuse the difference between concentration and dose. It's not concentration you have to look at, it's dose. How many milligrams a day that you swallow? Fluoride accumulates in the bone over a lifetime. The first symptoms of skeletal fluorosis are identical to arthritis. We've never studied that issue in the United States. Fluoride can make the bone more brittle, increasing fracture risk. 2 important studies there. There's an unrefuted study that shows that fluoride increases the risk of osteosarcoma by 5 to 7 times in young boys when exposed to fluoridated water in their 6th, 8th years. That's never been refuted. But even so, Dr. Johnson here can get up and say there is absolutely no evidence of harm. Well, that isn't no. There is evidence. The fact that he doesn't recognize it or believe it is not the point. It's out there in the literature, and it's documented. It was peer-reviewed, and it was published. Fluoride accumulates in the human pineal gland, Luke 2001, and lowers melatonin production in animals. Neither finding has been pursued in any fluoridated country. Why not? The National Research Council said several lines of information indicate an effect of fluoride exposure on thyroid function. And even though this issue has been recognized since the 1930s, no fluoridated country has studied this issue epidemiologically until the study by Peckham and others in 2015. They found an association between the prevalence of hypothyroidism in the UK and fluoride levels in the water. Again, no evidence of harm. What is that study? Okay, you can disagree with it, you can challenge the methodology, but the fact that it's there and it should be recognized and it should be discussed and admitted to by the proponents. It is apparent that fluorides have the ability to interfere with functions of the brain. Since that statement was made by the National Research Council, there have been another over 200 more brain studies published since 2006. So here are some of those 300 plus brain studies. The Harvard meta-analysis, which Johnny referred to, the Harvard team, it was 27 studies that they looked at, published in Environmental Health Perspectives. They admitted that there were weaknesses in the studies. Largely, there wasn't enough information. But what they also stressed, which Dr. Johnson just forgot to tell you, was that they found a remarkable consistency in these results. That 26 out of these 27 studies found a lowering of IQ in the high fluoride village. And these studies were done at different times by different research teams in different countries and different geographical areas, but they all found, except one, lowering of IQ in the high fluoride village, and the lowering was substantial, 7 IQ points on average. Dr. Philippe Grandjean said fluoride seems to fit in with lead, mercury, and other poisons that cause chemical brain drain. But these IQ studies are only the tip of the iceberg as far as the studies indicating fluoride is neurotoxic. Over 100 animal studies shows that fluoride can damage the brain. 34 out of 36 animal studies dealing with learning and memory showed animals exposed to fluoride were impacted. 51 now out of 58 human studies. 12 studies, 7 human and 5 animal linked fluoride with other brain dysfunctions. And 3 fetal studies shows that fluoride could damage the fetal brain. The animal studies, remember this, there are many weaknesses in animal studies, but the good thing about animal studies is you can control everything except the thing that you're looking at. So you can put animals in mazes, and the only difference between 2 groups of animals is that one's had fluoride and the other one hasn't. And the ones who got fluoride don't learn so well, don't memorize so well. And that's very consistent now then with the human studies of lowering of IQ. Here's the most important of the IQ studies, which was ignored by the EPA, who rejected our petition, ignored by, with the proponents. They compared the IQ of children in 2 villages. One village had a low fluoride concentration of 0.36 average. The other one had a concentration of 2.5, not 5 to 10 times higher than 0.7, very close. They controlled for lead exposure and iodine intake and retrospectively for arsenic. They found a drop of 5 to 10 IQ points across the whole age range between these 2 villages. Here you see the whole IQ curve shifted over. Fewer highly intelligent and more mentally handicapped. Now they did something else which was incredibly important. they subdivided the high fluoride village into 5 groups of increasing fluoride concentration. So you see the green box there, A through E is the 5 groups, F is the control. You see the concentrations are ranging from 0.75 up to 4.16. Then look at the IQ. Look at the IQs. This is all in one village, so they've knocked out any comparison between the 2 villages. This is all in one village. You see that we've got a dose-response relationship here. As the fluoride concentration goes up, the IQ goes down. None of the proponents who dismiss these IQ studies go into this study in any depth. There's the dose-response relationship, and look where fluoride IQ is lowered, between 0.75 and 1.5 parts per million. Don't tell me that that's hugely greater than what we use in the United States. We range from 0.7 to 0.6 to 1.2 around the world, and now it's 0.7. In a new study published a few months ago, which I co-authored, we quantified the risk here. And what we found was that a dose of 1.4 milligrams per day, that would be 2 liters of water at 0.7 parts per million, reduced the IQ of the children in the Zhang study by 5 IQ points. Now, this is what Dr. Denise Johnson wrote in an editorial in the paper yesterday. She wrote, "The levels used in the Chinese IQ studies were much higher than the level used for water fluoridation in the United States. This is not true for the Zhang study. IQ lowered between 0.75 and 1.5 parts per million. Dr. Johnson also said the harms they point to in China could have been caused by lead and arsenic. But I've just told you that Zhang controlled for lead, arsenic, and iodine." Now, I think it's probably a genuine mistake, but what it shows, I think, is that you may be taking at face value what the proponents are telling you, or your bosses are telling you. It's clearly you couldn't make those mistakes if you actually read the literature. And something about toxicology, if you've got a series of studies, and you are in the position of making a judgment about risk, you don't look at the worst studies. You look at the best studies. You don't look at the highest doses, you look at the lowest doses. And this is being violated every time the proponents talk about these studies. Now I want to explain why a drop of 5 IQ points is so serious at the population level. This is something that you do to the whole population. Not just the average person or 1 or 2 people, not a patient that comes to a doctor, but the whole population is being exposed to a neurotoxic substance with every glass of water that they drink. Now, the IQ is distributed normally, like every other human trait, the bell-shaped curve. The average person clusters around the average value of 100. But it's those 2 tails that we should be concerned about. The green area is the fraction of the total of the population which is very bright or geniuses. That fraction, that green area. And the mauve area is the fraction which is mentally handicapped. If you shift the whole population's IQ down by 5 IQ points, and don't forget in the Chinese studies it went down by 7 IQ points, and in Zhang it was 5 to 10 IQ points, the average person would go from 100 to 95, and a parent wouldn't notice that, nor would a school teacher. But look what it does to your 2 tails. It halves the number of very bright, it halves the number of geniuses in your society, and doubles the number of mentally handicapped. That's devastating for a country like the United States, absolutely devastating. And if you've got any inkling that something in paint, something in gasoline, something in dentistry could be doing that to the whole population, you stop immediately. And what makes this easier is that we're doing this to ourselves. And to stop it, all you have to do is to turn off a tap if we could get the political will. And again, the last children who need their IQ lowered are children from low-income families, precisely those targeted for fluoridation. Yes, indeed, the Fluoride Action Network, along with 4 other groups, the American Association for Environmental Medicine, Toxic Food and Water Watch, the Organic Consumers Association, the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology, and Mums Against Fluoridation, sent this petition in. The petition called upon the US EPA to ban the addition of fluoride to drinking water under provisions in the Toxic Substances Control Act. And yes, indeed, to their shame, the EPA rejected our petition. And the rejection was based on very, very superficial science. They didn't even mention Zhang. You see the depth I went into on the Zhang? They didn't even mention that. But they did the broad brush stroke that you've heard from Johnny and Denise. Now, the evidence that swallowing fluoride lowers tooth decay is very weak, and it cannot possibly justify the risks posed to the brain and other tissues. See chapters 6 to 8 in our book, The Case Against Fluoride. Something that may shock you. You heard that everybody's fluoridating, right? Everybody's fluoridating? Forget it. Most countries do not fluoridate their water. Most of the people drinking fluoridated water live in America. This is an American practice. 97% of Western Europe population now drinks non-fluoridated water. Some fluoridate their salt, just 4. But according to the World Health Organization data, tooth decay in 12-year-olds is coming down as fast in the non-fluoridated countries as fluoridated countries. Based upon what you've heard, wouldn't you expect that the non-fluoridated countries, there would be differences? That they wouldn't be coming down as fast? No, something is going on here as to that we cannot explain. Maybe everybody's using fluoridated toothpaste and it's the topical thing that's working best. Maybe, who knows? But the fact is, you cannot, as a pro-fluoridation person, pull out from these graphs the notion that drinking fluoridated water has a significant impact. As you've heard, incredibly, after 70 years, there's been no randomized controlled trial, and yes, indeed, it could be done on an individual level. There's no reason to stop you with a group of children who get a placebo and the children who get a 1 milligram tablet. That could be done. Not done. The closest we've got to this is the Iowa study, where Warren and co-workers set out to find the optimal dose of fluoride to lower tooth decay. They calculated for children from birth to 9 years of age how much fluoride they were getting from every source, from dental products, from water and food, and they concluded there's no clear relationship. These findings suggest that achieving a caries-free status may have relatively little to do with fluoride intake. And from David Locker in Ontario, the magnitude of fluoridation's effect is not large in absolute terms, is often not statistically significant, and may not be of clinical significance. And the most likely explanation for these unexpected results, if you believe in fluoridation, is that the CDC has conceded that the predominant benefit of fluoride is topical. Exact quote, fluoride's caries preventive properties initially were attributed to changes in enamel during tooth development, so whoops, we were wrong. However, laboratory and epidemiologic research suggests that fluoride prevents dental caries predominantly after eruption of the tooth into the mouth, and its actions primarily are topical. Summary, fluoridation is unusual, most countries don't do it, unnatural, the level of fluoride in mother's milk is extremely low, unethical, the government is violating the individual's right to informed consent to human treatment. If you go ahead with this, Meadville will be doing to everyone what an individual doctor can do to no one, force them to take medication. Unsafe, potential for brain damage, and many other harms. And unnecessary. If it works at all, it works topically. At the very least, fluoridation is a violation of the precautionary principle. If there is any doubt, leave it out. Other countries have demonstrated that there are better ways of fighting tooth decay that don't involve forcing fluoridation on everybody. These other ways are not only better for dental health, but better for the health of the body. By reducing sugar consumption, you fight obesity and diabetes. And better alternatives to the Nexo program in Denmark, I can answer questions about that from anybody that's interested. The Child Smile program in Scotland, they're getting better results than fluoridated countries. Thank you.
Okay. Could I have your attention, please? We ready for the next part?
Yep.
All right, so we're going to repeat the process of drawing paper out of the hat, okay? And we'll let ladies go first again. right? You're a gentleman, see that? Okay, open them up, please. You got two? You wish to go first or second?
Second.
Second, all right. Dr. Knapp? Okay. You'll have 10 minutes, Dr. Knapp.
Yep, okay. Well, you heard the figure 25%. Fluoridation reduces tooth decay by 25%. Let's see where that 25% figure came from and what it means. It comes from this review, the largest review of tooth decay in the United States, based upon data collected by the National Institute of Dental Research in 86 and 87. Here's the 25% figure. Actually, the difference in tooth decay was only 18%, but with some hand waving, they made it up to 25%. Let's look at what that actually found. They looked at 39,000 children in 84 communities. And their measure of tooth decay was decayed, missing, and filled surfaces. By the time all the teeth that come out in the child, it's 128 tooth surfaces. And they're between 4 and 5 tooth surfaces to each tooth. Now, they looked at children aged 5 to 17. And in this table 6, the children who'd spent all their lives in a fluoridated community, the average DMFS, decayed, missing, and filled surfaces, was 2.8, very low. And then over in the non-fluoridated community, the decayed, missing, and filled surfaces was 3.4. Do a little bit of arithmetic. Take 2.8 from 3.4, and it's a saving of 0.6 of a tooth surface. That's what we're talking about in absolute terms. The largest study done in the United States by pro-fluoridation people found a difference of 0.6 of one tooth surface. But you convert that into a decimal, a fraction, and it comes to 25%. How many of you, when you heard the figure 25%, saw this only a quarter of the decay in the mouth and thought, that must be terrific? 0.6 of one tooth surface. Now, based upon that study, we have two relationships. There's a very strong relationship, which is that ingesting fluoride increases the prevalence of dental fluorosis. A weak relationship of fluoride ingestion and lowered tooth decay. This is from the same database. Notice the strong relationship. As the fluoride concentration goes up in the community, you see the dental fluorosis rates go up in the community. A very strong relationship, no question about that. So more fluoride damages the teeth. Now look at the relationship with dental caries. Do you see a huge relationship there? Can you see a huge difference when you go from less than 0.3 to 0.3 to 0.7? 0.7 to 1.2, just like Warren and co-workers, the Iowa study, they couldn't find a clear relationship. But they're absolutely confident that it works. Now, I've got key questions for proponents. You have heard that we have presented, and we documented it all. You can get all 300 references from our webpage. 300 primary studies, not self-serving government reviews. Can you cite that give you the confidence, Dr. Johnson, and Steve Slott? What gives you the confidence to ignore all 300 studies and say there's no evidence of harm? Where is your confidence? In other words, we are saying, and you can check them out, we have 300 red flags waving. We're not saying that any one study proves emphatically that fluoride lowers IQ, but we've got 300 red flags. 300. How many green flags can Dr. Johnson, Dr. Denise, and Steve Slott? How many green flags? How many primary studies? And these are studies which are meant to convince you that you're not taking a risk with our children's brains. Now, in terms of better alternatives to fluoridation, we have the Nexo program in Denmark and the Child Smile program in Scotland. Now, according to the World Health Organization, Denmark has the lowest tooth decay rates in the world. It's never fluoridated its water or its salt. Nexo is a community where the program began. The results were so dramatic in lowering caries that it spread throughout Denmark. The program began in 1980, and here you see a comparison between the tooth decay. This is in 5-year-olds. The dark line is for the rest of Denmark. The light blue line is in Nexo. So you can see how much better for 5-year-olds the Nexo program is for the rest of Denmark, which is the best in the world. And for 12-year-olds, you've got an even better relationship. You see that light blue line. This is Nexo going down and down and down and down and down, a fraction of the rest of Denmark. So what are they doing? Is it an incredibly difficult program? No. The Nexo program is based upon non-operative caries treatment, no operations. It begins at 8 months and it goes on for 18 years. It involves both parents and children. They are shown how to brush their teeth, the proper way of brushing your teeth to control the plaque. And they have regular home visits, and if for some reason the oral hygiene is not considered adequate, they shorten the time to the next visit. The aim is to maintain sound teeth using the fewest resources possible. Topical fluoride is given only if oral hygiene is not sufficient. In other words, topical fluoride is not used unless it is seen to be absolutely necessary. Systemic fluoride is never used. Systemic fluoride is never used. No swallowing of fluoride. Even sealants are not used because they're considered less effective than proper oral hygiene. If fillings or other dental work is needed, it is provided in a timely manner. In Scotland, instead of home visits, they have teaching of toothbrushing in the schools. The first kids that go to, they're taught how to brush their teeth. And the beauty of the program is they involve both the children and the parents. The parents are involved. They too learn how to brush their teeth, how the kids should brush their teeth, and healthy diet. They're given healthy snacks in school. And they provide annual dental checkups, and if treatment is required, including fluoride varnish applications. Now, one of the reasons that these programs are cost effective is you're not only treating tooth decay, but you're fighting obesity, too much sugar. Tooth decay is caused by too much sugar, and so is obesity, and so is diabetes. That gives the justification for an enormous amount of money spent by the US government to get down to the real cause of tooth decay. And the other reason that these programs are so cost effective, in Scotland they reduced the cost by half, is because it reduced baby bottle tooth decay, because you're educating parents and kids from the very start of their lives. And when you cut out baby bottle tooth decay, that's an enormous amount of money on thing. Notice that with Dr. Johnson's presentation, there were practically no references. There were lots of very powerful assurances, but very few references. He mentioned Calgary. Johnny is in Alberta, not Ontario. And he says that the tooth decay has skyrocketed since they stopped. Absolute nonsense. Go to our webpage and we have a critique, a thorough critique, and a larger one is going to be published, we hope, in the same journal. You mentioned that $1 spent saves $38. This is such an old warhorse from the pro-fluoridation people. Look at this study by Coe and Thiessen. They completely demolished that notion that you save $38 for every dollar invested in fluoridation. No references, no references. I'm sure you get a bonus for saying it's safe and effective every few minutes. Now, it really is rich when we are accused of playing around with the Harvard IQ meta-analysis. Because for many months after that was published, the proponents were saying that in this study, the reduction in IQ was half an IQ point. We had to point out to them that they made a slight mistake. It wasn't half an IQ point, it was half a standard deviation. That's 7 IQ points. So were we the ones manipulating that? No. It's the promoters have manipulated that. They've done everything that they can to downplay that because they know how devastating it is for parents to hear that the government is allowing a neurotoxic substance to be added to their children's drinking water every day of their lives. And if you can't see that that is a violation of the precautionary principle, then let's forget the precautionary principle altogether. Because if what's going on is not a violation of the precautionary principle, nothing is. Nothing is. So let's be honest and get rid of it.
Thank you, Dr. Cook. We'll give Dr. Johnson a second to get his thumb drive ready. Should I make a sarcastic remark? No. Thank you. You'll have 10 minutes, Dr. Johnson. I will give you a cue at 5 and another cue at 1 minute, okay? All right.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the rebuttal, Dr. Conant. I will tell you that if references are what you want, you have 80 pages in your book. Dr. Janet Silverstein, who rebutted you on the thyroid and endocrine disruption, she has 80 pages of references of scientific literature she has published. So I'd be more than happy to get you any references that you want on any of this. I will tell you also that the Environmental Protection Agency looked at every one of your claims, and I will remind everyone that all of the studies that have been shown to you have not been conducted in a community that has community water fluoridation. Not one. All of these studies he's speaking about are in areas of the world that have natural amounts of fluoride in the water, which are high. None of them have the level of community water fluoridation. He spoke about China. I will let you see China here in a minute. He spoke about the literature that on the Grand Jean did on the meta-analysis and how levels that were very high had IQ changes. He's absolutely correct, 7 points. At levels which were their reference levels, which were at levels that we have in water fluoridation, had zero effect, no effect whatsoever. And the NRC showed that, and I've got a reference slide on that. So, in China, they burn coal inside their house, which is very high in fluoride content. For heat, it settles on their food, they eat it. That wasn't considered. They also drink They also drink black brick, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get distracted. They also drink black brick tea, which is very high in fluoride. That wasn't considered. So now they're looking at fluoride levels in the water, like in a ditch water that they're going to go get their water from. And in fact, fluoride levels that are recommended in China, if they were going to do the fluoridation, would be 0.3 to 0.4. That's what it is in Singapore as well. So let's just state that every fact that he has spoken about today has been considered and in-depth rebuttals made and denial by the Environmental Protection Agency. Absolute, every single one. Now this is an argument that is not new. Let me back up. 41% of 12 to 15-year-olds have fluoridation, or have fluorosis in the United States. That is what a study showed that was done on everybody, fluoridated community or not, 6 to 49 years old. That was from 2010, Eugenio Beltran. If you look at the teeth on the right, I apologize, it's kind of bleached out by the projector, but you can't see that there is enamel white spotting of fluorosis on those teeth. You cannot see it. Only a dentist or dental professional in a office under bright light, dried teeth, and magnification can see this. Walking down the street, look around the room and see if you see 4 out of 10 people that you see white spots on their teeth. It ain't happening. It's not there. We can see it. And I will tell you that this study showed those white spots actually benefited teeth by having less cavities. This is what dental fluorosis looks like. And this is directly off the CDC's website. I believe I have a reference on this one. There it is. We have normal teeth. You have a questionable, is there any white spots or not? I will tell you they use a ring flash on a camera. If you've ever used one, they give you kind of little rings. Very mild is that little white spot there and right there. Mild fluorosis, unlike what he showed, this is called snow capping. It's like this. And as a pediatric dentist of 30 years, I will tell you that snow capping wears off within 3 or 4 years after the teeth come in. Walk around and look at kids. See if you see this all the time. Look at adults. See if you see something like this on them. Now, moderate fluorosis does not occur from community water fluoridation. It occurs from improper use of fluoride products. Yes, it does. Swallowing fluoride products like toothpaste is where moderate fluorosis comes from. Severe fluorosis, as I showed you from this study, that showed only fluorosis occurred at 7 times, 8 times the level of what would be in fluoridated water at 4 milligrams per liter. At 2 milligrams per liter, severe fluorosis goes away. And at what your level is, 0.7, it's 1/3 of where severe fluorosis can occur. Severe fluorosis does not occur in the United States, and that is according to the United States Preventive Services Task Force, and it's also noted in this book. There are no health issues whatsoever. Could there be? Could there be? Do theologians argue over the Bible and never agree? And these are experts in fluoridation, published literature that have done it their entire lives. Yes, they do argue over it. Oh, I will tell you one other thing, that this can only happen while your teeth are developing under the gums up until age 8. It does not happen to adults. So worrying about fluoride being in your water as an adult and having teeth darken, that's something that's kind of, it's inferred, it's not accurate. Zhang, the study from NRC. Here's what Zhang's study showed. The drinking water in the high level was 0.57 to 4.5 milligrams per liter. Again, not considering other variables. The low level was 0.18 to 0.76, 0.76 being what we would be at. That was the reference level. Those folks at the low dose, a low amount of fluoride, had 0 IQ effects. Those at the higher level had 7 points, up to 7 points deficit. So let's face it, 0.7 parts per million, controlled amount of fluoride, put into your water is not going to cause an IQ problem. That has been shown in studies in Broadbent in New Zealand. Yes, it was a long-term water fluoridation program that showed fluoride did not cause any IQ development. Research published. And it's interesting that Dr. Conant, I'm sorry this is kind of washed out, but in 2013, he said the exact same things about many of the things he stated up here, and I reached out to the researchers. He said he was talking about Dr. Warren and what Dr. Warren had to say about water fluoridation. And Dr. Warren and Dr. Steve Levy worked together, and he said, we did not say, oh, I apologize, I cannot read that on that slide.
I can give you
But I will, I have it. I have the reference on my computer.
I've got the quote for you.
Well, from this study?
Gentlemen, please.
Okay, I will tell you that Dr. Levy, who did the research, absolutely said Dr. Conant is totally incorrect in what he's saying. Totally incorrect. So this is the researcher who has done the work, that what he is saying they said is not what he said. Same with Brunel and Carlos, the biggest study ever done. Yes, it was. And there are definite differences in fluoride reductions from beginning to end in that city. And the way that this was done, it was manipulated data by an anti-fluoridationist, John Yamamoto, who looked at the data that was in decayed, missing, and filled surfaces of a tooth. Each tooth has what's considered 4 surfaces. He played around with the data. He said, let's call it a tooth, a DMFT. So if you have a little pinhole in a tooth, that's considered a cavity. If you have a tooth that's blown away down to the bottom of the gums, that's considered one tooth cavity. When you consider it by surfaces and that tooth is bombed away to the gum line, it is 4 surfaces. So in other words, he played with the data to show things that they wanted it to show. With the rest of the time, I'd like to yield to Dr. Johnson.
Half a minute, okay. Well, just in my half a minute, I just want to make sure that you know that, you saw a lot of references, you saw a lot of glitzy slides, you saw a lot of inferences that these studies have validity. You heard that the EPA actually looked at all of these claims in detail. We have reputable scientists who look at these things in detail, and then they make their recommendations based on that. A lot of this is, it's thrown up here, we can see it, it looks great because it's got the references, but we really have to, we can share that link with you for the EPA's report when they declined that petition where they actually show the detail. Dr. Lung did a really nice editorial that talked about the Chinese study and why it wasn't valid to show the results that are being claimed here. We could also give you the link for that so that you could see it. So that, yes, there's a lot of information here. It sounds great, but I challenge you to actually look at the actual data and the analysis of it so that you can see that a lot of these claims that are made are not valid and do not represent the reality of fluoridated water. Your colleagues in fluoridated communities, are you saying that Meadville people are smarter, have higher IQ because we don't have fluoride?
Is this a list of
30 minutes, 30 seconds.
Can I move this to the side? Sure. Could you put the lights on, sir, back there?
Should we go on the other side?
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're going to switch to the other side. So
Sure. Feel free if you'd like to do that, too.
I can't move. I'll just go to the corner.
All right. We've got 20-some people that would like to say something. So we're going to start that. Please be cognizant, if you're a speaker, that you have 3 minutes. That 3 minutes will include answers to your questions. Panels, please be cognizant that we have 3 minutes each. We have a lot of people that want to say something, so please keep your answers brief. If you have a question, you can refer your question to either side, and the other side will get a chance to rebut the answer. Is that understood by everyone? Okay? So if I butcher your name, I apologize. I'd like you to come up here. I'll give you the microphone, and you can stand right up here, and you can address the question or whatever you want to say to the board also. Let's start with Ann Furno. You were first on the list, Ann. Need help?
No, I'll be okay.
You sure?
Let's get over here.
Okay.
All righty.
3 minutes. Go.
Okay. My name's Ann Furno, and I'm a lifelong resident of Meadville. I'm 82 years old, and my approach to this issue is common sense. I'd like to show you this bottle here. This is a product. You can buy it in the stores. It's a fluoride rinse. There's variations of it. My dentist suggested I might use this anti-cavity and for dry mouth, and I didn't have dry mouth. I didn't want to get it. I'm not worried too much about cavities at my age. I have very good teeth. I still have them. I intend to take them with me. Okay? Right on the back of this bottle, it says right here, I'm going to read it to you, and I'll pass it around if anyone, I'll set it up here if anyone wants to look at this, they can. Warnings: keep out of reach of children. If more than used to rinsing is accidentally swallowed, get medical help or contact a poison control center right away. That says a lot to me. You don't ingest fluoride. Rinse your mouth, but don't swallow it, okay? The schools should not be dispensers of fluoride pills to children. Their parents should be doing that. The children should be taught to brush their teeth regularly, have proper diets, and see a dentist on a regular basis. That's taking care of your teeth good. The issue should be on the ballot. This having the fluoride in our water, that everybody has to consume it, should not be forced on us. I think that's very important. I think that's a common sense thing. I don't know why it won't be put on the ballot. It should be put on the ballot so the people can choose. Parents for the children in the schools, teachers give the pills out, the fluoride pills out, and the parents have the option to not have their children take the fluoride pills. We should have the option to not have the fluoride in our water system. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Ron Brown?
All right. I'll sit this over here if anybody wants to look at it. Okay.
Hi, Ron. And when you're ready.
Ready?
Go.
Do I get a mic?
Sure, I'm sorry.
Hi, my name's Ron Brown. And, my heart goes out to Meadville Medical Center because if 25% of our community is poor, then they're bearing the brunt of the burden for people that come with tooth problems and issues. However, at the same time, suppose we have a high concentration of schizophrenics in this community and they're not taking their lithium. So they say, okay, let's put it in the water. Well, now we're all being treated for schizophrenia, right? Well, no, this is considered a medicine. It's going to be put in the water, and we all have a right not to take it. But they're not going to give us the right if they put it in. We have to come up with an alternative, reverse osmosis or something else. And they're not even talking about biological magnification. If you say drink a lot, you eat at the restaurants, you eat soup, all these things, I might get 5 times as much as somebody else in one day's time. And the other thing is, I don't see how you can guarantee that you're hitting your target audience. If the problem's with the kids and they're drinking sodas, what's stopping them from drinking sodas? They're going to continue their behavior. So now we've got kids that have tooth problems that are still drinking sodas, and I'm being treated for fluoride and I don't even need it. Does that make any sense? I don't think it does. So I would suggest we ought to have a right to not have fluoride in our water. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Dr. Fitton? Tell me when you're ready.
Yeah, ready. Thank you, Frank. I'm Abe Fitton, not Dennis. There is a relationship. And if someone tells you deja vu has a time limit to it, don't believe it. Because over 50 years ago, as a young dentist, yes, I was young at one time, and I'm older than you are by a couple years. I'm 84. But over 50 years ago, I was part of a community-wide effort requesting Meadville City Council to fluoridate the local water supplies in order to improve the oral health of our citizens. After initial success, just 2 weeks, the vote of one of the council members was reversed by political pressure. As a result, my Meadville dental colleagues and I, many who are here tonight, have over the past 50 years treated oral disease, a good portion of which could have been prevented. And a good portion of the money spent in this treatment could have been saved. At the time of this effort, 50 years ago, there were very few communities in northwestern Pennsylvania with fluoridated water systems. Among them, Cambridge Springs, Greenville, and Northeast. Now, there are very few communities in northwestern Pennsylvania not fluoridated, and unfortunately, Meadville is one of them. Natural fluoride is present in our water supply. Therefore, I respectfully request that the Meadville Area Water Authority, the MAWA, the body now responsible for the implementation and management of water fluoridation, take action to adjust the level of fluoride in the water to the safe and recommended level necessary for the prevention of oral disease. This action is supported and/or endorsed by over 7 decades of exhaustive scientific research by major public health organizations and experience with fluoridation in thousands of cities, large and small, across our nation. Thank you, Board, for consideration of the enactment of this vital public health measure, which would result in improved oral health, alleviation of pain, and financial savings of your citizens who are served by you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Finn. Michael Downing? I'm sorry, Michael, you're not a user? You're not a consumer? Okay. Herb? Is it Reed or Ride?
Reed.
Reed?
Reedy.
Reedy, I'm sorry. Reed? You ready? Oh, let me see, go. You ready? Go. Go.
Good evening. A few weeks ago, I was here for the councilman debate, where lucky if there was one row worth of people here compared to what's here tonight. I believe that both sides of this debate are very passionate and believe in what they say, and I believe that the science, in my opinion, that it does help with preventing cavities, but at the other side, I believe that he's passionate about what he believes in and that nobody should be forced to do something that everybody should have a decision. So one thing that you don't have that Pinellas County had in Florida when they took away your fluoridation was the ability to go back and kick out your elected officials and put in officials to make the decision you wanted. You have an unelected authority making the decision. That's right. So I would encourage the authority to require every stakeholder, the councils and the township supervisors, to, if they decide, if you wish to fluoridate, to require each municipal governing body to also pass a resolution supporting the same, so that they are also buying into it and therefore personally responsible for the decision one way or the other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reedy. Mr. Dan Smith?
Thank you. I'd just like to start off by saying I'm very proud of us as a community for being professional and courteous. It is an emotional issue. I agree with a lot of what's been said on both sides. My doctor will tell you, I don't want to put anything in my body that I don't enjoy putting in my body. And I don't understand the sense behind putting a industrial waste product. What's the source that we're going to put in the water? Can the board tell us that? What kind of fluoride is going to be added to the water? Has that decision been made yet? Is it hydrofluorosilicic acid? Mm-hmm. Yes? Is it?
That's what
okay. It's a byproduct from fertilizer manufacture. They don't have to treat it before they put it into the water. You don't know what else you're getting in there that decided to catch a ride into your water system. You can't sit here and reasonably say that a toxic chemical cannot do harm. And I know some medicines, I mean, everything in moderation, I understand that. What's the additional cost? The fluoride has to be injected into the water system. That's additional equipment that's going to need to be purchased, correct? No? I don't necessarily agree with that. Who's going to be certified to monitor the levels? What's the cost going to be to make sure that the level is safe? What happens if the level goes beyond the safe and acceptable or adequate standards? There's been news stories. Look at Flint, Michigan and Allegheny County where the kids can't drink water in school. They fluoridate their water. Fluoride additives also cause lead to leach from the pipes to go into the water. That can increase the amount of lead content in the water. So the loss of IQ may not be related to fluoride directly, but there's too many things that might be a secondary effect of adding another chemical into what most would agree is already a chemically tainted water supply that we have in the country, probably in the world. Thanks, Frank. So I agree that it should be a ballot, a referendum. We should be able to figure it out how to get it on the ballot. Some people say it's too hard to get it on the ballot. I think that's giving up too easily. If I'm a paying customer of the water authority system and I do not want my children to drink the water, just by telling me you have an alternative means to avoid that is not acceptable. I should not have to bear an additional cost unless there is some way that the authority can come up with some system to allow me to receive a credit to offset the cost of that alternative process. I'd be in favor of that. So, again, I thank everybody for their participation and being civil. This is a lot better than the Crawford County Courthouse debate we had, so thanks again.
Mr. Jason Wells? Mr. Wells? Stand anywhere you want to.
Well, that's a tough act to follow. Bottom line is, it seems like we all are trying to
achieve the goal of fixing a problem in our community. And you know, the people before me have brought up most all of my points, but I think it's just important to remember that is it ever sensible to fix a problem the wrong way, right? The wrong way would be adding pollutants to our water. The science is very solid here that it's a bad idea. It's generally always a bad idea to add chemicals to water, which is a purifying aspect in our lives. That's what we use to clean our bodies out. We're dumping chemicals that are unnatural into the water. These are not natural. This is not naturally occurring fluoride like you might have in certain geological formations. This is just wrong. Find another way. There are other ways. We must do the right thing, not the easy thing. And I really hope if it comes down to this, you gentlemen voting on that, I hope that truth prevails over other interests. And that's all I have to say.
Mr. Raymond, is it Lenny? L-E-N-N-Y? Mr. Raymond? Lenny? Lenny? L-E-U-N-Y? Lenny? Lenny, I'm sorry. Pardon me for doing that to you.
Hi, my name is Raymond Lau. I'm a pediatrician. I come to this country around more than 20 years ago. I first moved, worked in Children's Hospital of Buffalo, and then I moved to Meadville. When I first started to see kids here, one thing that struck me is that there are more cavity than what I used to see in Buffalo or back in Hong Kong, where I come from. But I think it's probably because I serve, because we are the only pediatric practice here. I serve the poor population that they are underprivileged. 4 years ago, I was invited into the water fluoridation committee. I looked at the data, and I found that there's actually not much medical controversy. And all the government or medical organization that have a special task force to look into the problem, they universally endorse water fluoridation. And so as a doctor, all I can say that water fluoridation is safe and effective. But it's up to the board member to decide what to do. Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor. Carrie, is it Dinsmore?
Dinsmore.
Come up, Carrie.
Hello, good evening. I just want to kind of second the comment of how nice it is to have our community come together. I think out of all of this is amazing that we're here having a debate. It's civil, and I enjoy it, so thank you. My name is Carrie Dinsmore, and I'm the WIC Director for Crawford, Warren, and Clarion counties. I just mainly wanted to comment on the populations we serve. We do serve up to 185% poverty, which in this area for family of four is roughly just under $45,000. So it is a large amount of our community that does qualify for that program. I guess my general impression is that of the 3 counties, we have 2 that do not fluoridate their city waters, 1 that does. And the city that does is Clarion. And we see double to triple the amounts of dental health issues in Warren and Crawford County as we do in Clarion. We took those numbers apart. We looked at them a little bit more by the city. They are consistent. So we're seeing more dental health issues in the cities of Meadville and Warren as compared to Clarion. Dental health is imperative for good nutrition. It's imperative for your well-being, and it's imperative for our lifelong trajectories of success and learning. And there's lots of things that are connected to that. And I just feel, from a public health perspective, proven public health measures that have shown successful should be considered when we look at our population, especially those most at risk. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Linda Bush?
Hi, Linda. We've got 3 minutes, Linda. You got
Anybody who knows me, it's not that long. Hi, I do live in the city of Meadville, and I feel we have more than enough chemicals that we breathe and or ingest every day. We don't need any more. I educate people on how to get rid of household chemicals that are harmful to us as well as our environment by selling the product Norwex. Through this, I've learned many facts, one being that fluoride is a toxic chemical we put in our bodies unnecessarily. I'm not sure the end justifies the means. My example is my own life. I was born in 1952. My sisters, 1949 and 1954, in Allegheny County, Pittsburgh. I've done some research. Yes, I've done my homework. Fluoride was added to the drinking water in Allegheny County in the 1950s. I lived my first 22 years of my life in a housing project in Pittsburgh. Yes, I was poverty. We neither had insurance or the money for me or any of my family to go to the dentist. My parents made sure that I brushed my teeth at least twice a day. And I did not, as a child, drink pop. So I did not have that high sugar in the soda. When I got married and moved to Meadville in 1974, I was able then to have dental insurance. I visited the dentist after my exam and x-rays. He informed me I had at least 10 cavities. My sisters, born in the years that I said, also as adults went to the dentist and also had multi-cavities. Obviously, the fluoride water did not help us. As stated in the editorial in Inferno about the act, fluoride rinse, keeping it out of reach of children, that warning is also on almost, if not all, boxes of toothpaste containing fluoride.
15 seconds now.
Thank you. My question is, do you know why the 7 out of 8 communities in Pennsylvania voted to remove fluoride from the water supply? Why?
How much time do I have?
No, okay, I'll keep going.
No,
If they are voting to take it out, then why do we feel we need to put it in?
Buck County did not vote to take it out.
Okay.
They run Philadelphia Water and they switched water systems. That's why they no longer have it. That's 200,000 people.
Okay. In my opinion, as a former educator, we need to educate children and parents starting in preschool how important it is to brush your teeth at least twice a day, not put more chemicals in the water. Thank you.
Frank, can I respond to that 7 out of 8 since Dr. Johnson got a chance to?
Yes.
7 out of 8 Pennsylvania cities in the last 3 years who had fluoride in their water removed it. Their communities went through processes like we're going through right now. One of them was Bucks County, outside of Philadelphia. they have 385,000 people who were drinking fluoridated water, who now are not.
Okay.
And their water authority said, you know, we don't want to make the decision for your doctor. We're going to give you the choice whether you want to use fluoride or not. So.
All right, thank you, Doug. I'm going to give you 10 seconds, okay?
Okay, the other community, well, Bucks changed from Philadelphia, which is fluoridated, to a different system. The other communities all used, it's not something that works any longer, it's something that you're getting in your diet, you get it in toothpaste, it causes health issues. They use every one of the arguments that they hear from those that oppose fluoridation to vote it out. And that is it. I called every community.
Thank you.
Diane DeBase?
Good answer.
Diane DeBase?
It's not denying that they have to just said the same, use the same money.
Hello. Hi, I'm Diane DeBase, and I live in West Mead, but I do have city water, and I do own property in the city of Meadville. I will say, as I was on my way down here, one of my tenants called, and they are low income. And there's something, and it's nothing against the Meadville Tribune, but one thing that she brought up. She said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm on my way to a meeting." I said, "But of course you know about it." And no, she did not. And I never give it a thought until I was on my way here. Of course she didn't. We're talking low income people. We're not talking $45,000 a year. Bring that way down. And I will tell you, they will buy soap before they buy the paper. They have to live. And it's nothing, once again, against the Tribune. They just don't have the money. And my thoughts here with adding fluoride, I have to tell you, even at my age, and I'm a baby boomer, and I'm getting there, I do not want to put any chemicals in my body, nor my granddaughter's body, and she lives in Alexandria, when she comes to visit Grammy. I feel that if anybody wants fluoride, there's other means. And I drive van for my son through Crawford County for special needs children. And they have a life skills unit for them. And brushing your teeth and dental hygiene should be put on that roster if it's not already on there. Thank you and good luck.
You're a baby boomer, huh? You're not as old as me as a baby boomer.
No.
No, I know. See how you are? Dwayne Kohler?
Thanks, Frank. I work at Meadville Medical Center and lifelong West Mead resident, and for the last 29 years living in a neighborhood that has fluoridated water, or non-fluoridated water from the city water authority. Meadville Medical Center has, for many, many years, many decades now, done needs assessments, community health needs assessments. The one that was, well, Dr. Fenton will remember this because he was on our board at the time, but the issue has been around for many, many years, and it always was kind of overshadowed by a need for medical care, so we started a free clinic, and a need for doctors, so we started a residency program, cancer care, so we started a cancer program. In 2012, the needs assessment, we asked the people a generic question is, what's the biggest health problem in your household? And I think it was 7% or 8% said asthma problems, breathing problems. There were other things, autism showed up, it was less than 1%, but a number of things showed up. 30% of the people answered oral health problems. When we dug into that further, the number one reason why people went to the emergency room at Meadville Medical Center for 2 years in a row, and then second, the following year, was for dental pain, for oral pain. The Meadville Dental Center was formed, and some of our doctors are here tonight, and proud to see them here. And now I'm happy to say that that issue has gone from the first, most important reason why people go to the emergency room to now it's number 8, I think. But still, we need to get upstream of this problem, and there's an easy, safe way, and I think an inexpensive way to fix that. So I think that fluoridation is the right way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dwayne. Ms. Waggett, is it Carol? Carol Waggett? I can't read. W-A-G-G-E-T-T? I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry, okay, thank you. Is it Mr. Dale, D-A-L-E? Alexander?
My name is Alexander Dale. I'm a resident of Meadville. I used to teach at Allegheny College until they stopped paying me. I'm a retired neuroscientist and psychologist, and actually I still do a little bit of psychology. And I wanted to comment on logic and decision making. The first comment I'll make is that I won't be able to persuade anybody who came tonight to change their mind about anything, but I would like to caution people about over-inclusion and over-generalization, which leads to false premises. I've heard that fluoride has been characterized as a, quote, chemical, and we shouldn't add chemicals to our water, but you know, there are chemicals added to water that improve it. And if we didn't have chemicals added to our water, it would kill us, particularly with bacteria. Overgeneralizing that we shouldn't be adding chemicals to our water is a false premise that would lead to a false conclusion. Similarly, characterizing fluoride as an industrial waste leads to the same kind of illogical conclusions that it would be to characterize something as a chemical. We have to also be very cautious in evaluating scientific research. We see two very excellent presentations on scientific research, and they reach opposite conclusions. I am critical that we place so much discussion today on research that occurred in China. When my students were writing papers and they would come to me with a paper from China, I would say, I don't know what that means, because you know, this is a country that does not have the kinds of checks and balances in science that the United States has. And in the United States, we have problems with interpreting our science because we have all sorts of problems, like researchers faking data and people doing some pretty strange things in the name of science. So, you know, I don't want to say that all Chinese science is suspect, but let's look at science that is relevant to our situation here. We should be looking at data that comes from New York City. Millions of people taking fluoride there with none of the concerns that have been expressed here tonight. So when I read the literature, there's a lot of it. My conclusion is, let's go for it. Let's be equivalent to Cambridge Springs.
Thank you, sir. Beth Morfinski.
Hi, I'm Beth Morfensky. I've lived here my whole life. One thing that hasn't been mentioned that I've actually had to experience is with my children. All right, when I have 3 teenagers right now, and when they were little, when they started kindergarten and everything, all of a sudden my oldest one, who's going to be 15 now, he started coming home with headaches periodically, just minor ones. But then when my daughter, who's 2 years younger than him, came home with migraines so bad that she had to lay down after school, and me and the doctor worked together to figure out what's causing her headaches. So we thought carbon monoxide. So I went ahead, got a detector, house is fine. Had National Fuel come in, check it out. They had no problem. All of a sudden we linked it down to fluoride. My children were getting that fluoride tablet through school. Every single day when they went to school, fluoride in the toothpaste, and fluoride in dental work with getting the fluoride stuff put on. And so they have been without fluoride ever since my daughter was starting 1st grade. I have not had them on fluoride. None in the school, none from the dentist or anything. I get fluoride-free toothpaste. They do not have migraines, they don't have headaches. They're healthy, their teeth are beautiful, they see the dentist regularly on their regular visits. 2 of them are now going to the orthodontist for, corrections that come with birth and everything else. But they do not take fluoride now, and they haven't for years.
Thank you. Beth Chandler?
I think you can probably hear me without this, but, no? Okay.
It's on.
It is on, okay. I just want to talk about the fluorosis. I had tetracycline stain in my teeth growing up. They were green and disgusting. And when you poo-poo the fluorosis, for a young teenage woman going through high school with green teeth, it shouldn't be poo-pooed. It's something that is, very, I didn't smile for my pictures, nothing. And to just discount that as something is, this happens. It's, I spent thousands of dollars to get veneers later, and, which they're better, they could probably be replaced, but I just don't think you should poo-poo the fluorosis part of the fluoride. And don't fluoride our water, please.
Thank you. John Allen? It's on.
Okay. Mine is a question for the board. Since this discussion is...
Board isn't going to answer the question. You want to direct them to the gentleman at the...
Okay, I'll just... Everyone here can hear it. You can decide if the board should look into this or how they should deal with it. It's up to them. They're not going to talk about it. Okay. When I found out that we have natural fluoride in the water, but what would be added is a chemical manufactured form. I looked up they're called MSDS sheets, the material safety data sheets on it. It is, most things in there, it is listed as a Class 3 health hazard, this chemical, 4 being the worst. It is listed as a corrosive substance. It is listed as a reactive substance. One of the things it says, I had to bring the paper because I couldn't remember all this. On a lot of the health stuff, there says there's no data available or not classified. It doesn't say if it's safe or not. It does. These are the required forms that companies have to put out with the. It says on stability and reactivity, chlorides and metals are reactive to fluoride. if it's going to be in our water system, aside from all the other things we've heard, it will react with the chemicals in the pipes. It will also react with the chlorine. When Flint, Michigan changed their water system and changed the water chemistry, they released lead into their water. I hope our board won't take questions about this. We'll do the research, we'll check into it and decide, or have a plan if they decide to have this, to deal with all possibilities of that.
Gay Hilton?
Frank, can I use this other mic? That's really breaking up really bad.
Yeah. Gay, you want to go over here, please? This mic here?
Take it out of the...
I used to be a gym teacher, so I could probably go without this, but for those of you that don't know who I am, I'm a traditional naturopathic doctor, so I'm going to give you a little different viewpoint on, instead of treating symptoms, why, and putting chemicals in our waters, we're already getting annihilated with chemicals in the environment, your air that you breathe, the food that you're eating. You're getting chemicals on a daily basis. This is affecting your liver, your kidneys, your lymph, and that's the kind of job we do, is we go in and try to cleanse and detoxify the body to get rid of these chemical residues that build up over a period of time. Our cancer rates are climbing, and a lot of the causes for cancer, if you look at the real statistics, are chemicals. That's the leading cause of cancer. So what my suggestion is, instead of looking at putting something into our water system, why don't we go back to the cause, meaning the sugar that you're taking on a daily basis through your foods, your sodas, your candies, white, fluffy, puffy, all increases sugar intake in the body. That is what's causing the dental problems. So when we talk to people and try to treat and teach health, natural health, we say get rid of the white, fluffy, puffy, get your sugar content down. That's going to help prevent the dental problems. But my suggestion to all of us is to pay attention to the fact that what we need to be doing, this should be a decision by the people and for the people. And I think there should be a referendum. I don't want any chemicals put in my water. There's enough toxicity in the world. We need to start cleaning the toxicity up by cleaning our diets and getting better, cleaner air, and especially cleaner water. Thank you.
Sam Bird? That microphone there, Mr. Bird.
Good evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sam Bird. I lived here in this community for over 40 years. I'm not a native, but I would just like to say, as I look out at the many faces that are here about this issue, it makes me proud of my community, that either you're for or against it, you're here voicing your opinion. And for that, I say thank you. Before I arrived tonight, my wife and I were out to dinner, and we were presented with a menu. We made our personal choices about what we were going to eat. And I know there's a lot of intelligent people here and a lot of research and passion. I say that to say this: with all of your intelligence, with all of your passion, None of you have a right to make my decision about what I put into my body. If we're going to do this as a community, as has been suggested, let's put it on the agenda for referendum, for a vote, and see what the people say. The Water Authority is not an elected body. You're appointed. But I think if we need to have a representative decision, let's have a representative decision. Put it on the ballot. See what the people say. Not just 6 people, 10 people, but let it be a community decision. I thank you for your service. It's a thankless job, and you don't get paid. So God bless you. I'll be praying for you.
When you came in and registered to say something, we asked you if you were a consumer or a user of the system. And those of you that said no, it's your turn now, okay? Yes.
I'm a resident and I didn't get called.
What's your name, please?
Felicia Shaw.
Can you spell your last name for me?
S-C-H-O-T-T.
All right. Well, come on up. Sorry.
Sorry, sign up.
Thank you. I may have skipped over, they just didn't find it.
Hi, I'm Felicia Schott. I've lived in Meadville for 17 years.
I found it, Felicia, I'm sorry.
Thank you. When my children were little, Dr. Lung and many of the other pediatricians I respect at Meadville Pediatrics asked me if I wanted a prescription for fluoride for my children, and I said, no, thank you. And their dentist, who I respect very much, Dr. Talbacca, asked me many times if I wanted prescriptions for fluoride for my children, and I said, no, thank you. And then the school district, when they went to school, almost every year sent home a note, do you want your child to take fluoride? And I said, no, thank you. And I'm happy to say that my children are well, my daughter has absolutely no cavities at the age of 12. And my son, well, he got 1, he's 14. He loves his carbs though, so, you know. But they didn't have horrible results, and I'm embarrassed to say they are horrible toothbrushers. They are not excellent. They are not twice-a-day brushers, and probably not even once-a-day brushers. But they still have good, really good teeth. So good that their dentist and oral hygienists, and my son's getting braces now. Every time they come in, they're like, oh, your teeth are so wonderful. You take such great care of them. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, not these kids. My son just brushes his teeth right before they see them. So the amount of fluoride we have in Meadville's water is obviously enough for the children of Meadville, even with relatively bad hygiene, to still have good teeth. My children have excellent teeth, but I feel very strongly against fluoride. Obviously, I kept saying all these people are respected, no thank you to the fluoride. And my children still, even though all these experts said they needed it, still they've done fine. Kids have lots of opportunities in Meadville for fluoride, as far as I can tell. The school district, like I said, every single year during elementary school sent little notes home. I mean, if the school district were to quit, you know, we have a really nice system where kids who don't have money can get, you know, prescriptions and see doctors that would probably get them these prescriptions for fluoride. So I just don't really see the need for everybody to take fluoride if we don't want fluoride. Thank you.
Okay. Chris Seeley?
Good evening, doctors, ladies and gentlemen, board members. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to address you. I'm a resident of Linesville Borough, but I work 2 jobs in Meadville, and I would say that I probably drink and consume more Meadville water than I do of my own hometowns. But thanks for letting me speak with you for a few moments. Several years ago, I was serving as mayor of Linesville Borough, and I attended a public meeting that was really similar to this. It wasn't talking about taxes or a budget or any type of public health. It was actually discussing whether or not bread would continue to be a staple of the diet of the carpet, the spillway. Tensions were very high and arguably higher than they are in this room tonight. And my point is the debate is good for the community. And I think many of the folks who have come up before me have made that point. It's important. This is vibrant democracy in action, and it's encouraging to see that. And your role as volunteer authority members is just as valuable to this community. And I know that you could be somewhere a lot less stressful right now, but you're here learning and listening, and I think that that's important. And as an auditor, verifiable evidence is the last and final word in my current line of work. Occasionally, a few feathers have to be ruffled, but I can carry on knowing that the evidence is solid. And in this case, I can only point to reason. And it's kind of coincidental that today is the National Day of Reason. I ask that, do you believe for a moment that if the alleged dangers of controlled fluoridation held any water whatsoever, that the dozens of professional medical and scientific organizations throughout the United States would stand so firmly behind it? Do you believe that the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American School Health Association, and the National Head Start Association, and the March of Dimes would willingly expose our children to these dangers? No, they support community fluoridation. Do you believe that the United States Defense Department or the United States Department of Veterans Services would be so cavalier as to allow public fluoridation to jeopardize the health of veterans? Absolutely not. They too support fluoridation. Do you believe that the American Society for Geriatric Dentistry, the National Down Syndrome Association, and the Alzheimer's Association would for one moment allow millions of the most vulnerable Americans to consume a toxic poison through water? No. They too support community fluoridation, and I can only appeal to your good sense of reason. There are no agendas, there's no get-quick-rich scheme here, and there's no ill intent by either side. I don't believe that for a moment. But these organizations and the numerous others who support this initiative have a clear goal, and that is to protect and to advocate. The science is solid even to a layman. Sure, there are outliers, there always will be. There are a fair number of doctors that believe that vaccines cause autism. There are geologists who believe that the Earth is 6,000 years old, and there are biologists who reject evolution, all in the face of monumental scientific data. To dismiss immense amounts of peer-reviewed and verified research that support fluoridation is counterproductive to this discussion.
12 seconds, sir.
The debate over local government's role in that is a vibrant political debate and can be held. But to undermine the robust science behind it is not conducive to the operation. The work of a municipal authority is dull at best, but you have a unique opportunity to make a real difference in the community of Meadville.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Alicia Reisner-Baumann? Alicia?
Right here. I'm Dr. Alicia Reisner-Bowman, and I teach at the LECOM School of Dental Medicine, so I'm up in Erie, just up the road. I also represent the Governor's Health Advisory Board. I'm a member of the Board of Directors for the Pennsylvania Coalition for Oral Health. I am a representative for the state of Pennsylvania to the American Dental Association on the Council for Advocacy for Access and Prevention. I've been working as a consultant for the Department of Health on the 2017-2020 Oral Health Plan. And that said, I want to tell you, first of all, very much thank you for being here and learning everything you can about the benefits of water fluoridation. I have worked for 25 years in safety net clinics throughout New York and Pennsylvania in rural communities with and without water fluoridation, most of them wells that do not have adequate fluoridation. I've always been able to tell when a patient comes in whether or not they live in the fluoride area or the non-fluoride area. Non-fluoridated teeth show early decay, and it shows decay that advances extremely quickly. Dental decay is an active infectious disease process. We all agree that education, outreach, and prevention through those measures are ideal in helping to prevent the scourge of this terrible, painful disease.
But there are other measures available to us, and one of those is community water fluoridation, in addition to the good sense information that everybody else is supporting. Dental disease that we treat, when we see it at the levels that we see it in non-fluoridated communities, not only causes pain, unnecessary suffering, it causes speech impairments, disfigurement, dangerous infections, and it does lead to death. We have a crisis in this country with this preventable disease being the #1 diagnosis for children, more than obesity or asthma. A large part of the oral health plan for the state, as well as national and international initiatives, are focused on increasing the number of people with access to fluoridated community water. Community water fluoridation has proven to be safe and effective to help prevent this disease. Community water fluoridation benefits children and adults. Significant studies with large populations have shown it to be safe and effective public health measure that prevents dental decay.
30 seconds, doctor.
Dental decay isn't just a hole in the tooth. It's an emergency situation that causes unnecessary pain and suffering. It causes costly emergency room visits, pain that contributes to opioid abuse, which you've all been hearing about throughout the world. Preventing the source of this pain is critical. You have the ability and the responsibility to take care of the health of the people you serve. You've shown diligence in preventing disease through other safe drinking water practices, and you're now ready to move forward and take care of the planned initiative to further protect the citizens of Meadville.
Sorry, time is up, doctor.
Support of an international community stands behind you. Thank you.
Michael Downey? Michael Downey? Okay. David Roncolato?
Thank you. I am Dave Roncolato, and I live in Autumn Hills in West Mead. I actually work at Allegheny College, so I'm drinking a lot of water in Meadville, and actually sleep in West Mead is actually the more accurate experience this time of the semester. Every summer I take a mission trip to Appalachia, Kentucky, Lewis County, just across from Portsmouth, Ohio. Been doing it for 30 years. Years ago when we started, there was no municipal water supply in this community, wells or springs or where we would get our water for our work and our food and our bathing. One evening at our revival, one of our common friends who would come was late, and afterwards he came up to me and apologized for being late for the church service that he always made. He said a friend of his stopped by right as we were going to leave, and he needed help. He needed help, and he needed pliers, and he needed what I think was fishing line to extract a tooth in the way that this friend could help him. I asked him not to fill me in on the details of fishing line and pliers. You know, I'm glad to say that Lewis County is now a fluoridated community. Municipal water flows out into these hollers where we were. The whole state of Kentucky, I believe, is fluoridated water. Is that correct? Thank you. Yeah. I am not a scientist, I'm not a medical professional, I'm an ethicist based on Christian ethics, specifically the principle of option for the poor. That principle asks the question, who is going to benefit the most from a policy? How will the poor, those who don't have voice, don't have agency, how will they benefit from public policy and from public decision making? That shapes the ethic out of which I work. So when the opportunity came for Meadville to put fluoride in our water with the new structure that's put on, I was thrilled to say we will be able to do something significant for this community, and especially the poor. Fluoridation will help everyone, but increasingly, certainly the poor and the children.
30 seconds, sir.
So change is hard. Change is not easy. It is easy to rely on fear or misinformation and stay where we are. But I'm challenging you. I applaud the Water Authority for its approach to study this issue, to delve down into the research, to see where the consensus is and where the real motion is. So I'm asking you, Tim and Denny and Hal and John and Mark, to take this seriously as you have. I applaud you for that. And I ask you for a consensus vote to fluoridate the Meadville water supply. Thank you.
Dan Henninger.
Hello, my name is Dan Henniger. I'm a Meadville resident. I'm a graduate of Allegheny College. My opinion is this is a question of democracy, not a question of science. One of the hallmarks of our democracy is the valuing and protecting of the rights of minorities. Even if a minority of us do not want fluoridation, we still want our rights observed. You may choose to use fluoride, but don't choose for me. Thanks.
Pat, it looks like McHenry?
Yep.
Pat McHenry? Oh, there, Pat.
Ladies and gentlemen, please excuse me a little bit tonight. I'm 74 years old. Where's the moderator? Or I'm 74 too.
God bless you.
Yes, sir. Yeah. I have. I take a picture of my feet every night, so in the morning when I wake up, I look and see that I got the same number of digits on there I went to sleep at night with. I have no idea what I got. I got a little red squirrel running around inside my head half the time, and I have a rough time thinking and putting things together. Wrote an editorial a little while back, and I come out in opposition of the hospital and the medical authorities. Dr. Denise Johnson is a tremendous person. I want you to know that right up. Wayne Kohler, great. I have absolutely no argument with the intentions of these people. What I do have a problem with is informed consent. You remember back when I had a Tea Party thing and I ran that thing in, I think it was 2010. And with 2 days' notice, we had 400 people show up at the event. The issue was, and the media couldn't get it. The issue was that time, and they asked me, I said, they aren't listening. They said, well, what's the problem? I said, they don't listen. They don't listen. People don't ask the people what they want, and when they hear what the people want, they decide to do what they want. That's the problem with America today. You know, we've got health by medication. We have a drug problem today. I'm 31 years with the state police. I watched the genesis of this opioid problem, and it started not just with heroin. It started with prescribed medicine. It remains with prescribed medicine. What are we doing now? Is something there to where we're putting it in the hopes that it's going to help somebody? It may and it may not. But the decision should be the people that have to consume it. I've watched over the years, and Dr. Johnson had I know it wasn't a happy thing when we were sitting out there with the fetal demise, trying to figure out what caused the baby's death. We didn't know. We ended up with sudden infant death syndrome. We don't know. We have autism today that's skyrocketing. Why? We have ADH, attention deficit disorder, skyrocketing. Why?
30 seconds, sir.
Yes, sir. I'll make it quick. We don't know. But we do know that over that period of time and in those areas, we've been medicating the waters. We don't know what a neurotoxin is doing to the mother, the placenta, or the fetus, developing fetus. We don't know, and it's up to the people to decide whether or not they want to make to take the chance. Thanks.
Thank
Helen Hockey.
Thank you all. My name is Helen Hockey, and I appreciate you all hanging in there for us to continue this discussion. I am the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Coalition for Oral Health in Pennsylvania. Well, our group is a diverse group of stakeholders, dozens and dozens of agencies from across the state working to improve oral health in Pennsylvania. That is what we do. We emphatically support community water fluoridation. In fact, it is one of 4 priorities that we identified in our plan, our strategic plan, okay? And the reason I'm here is not just because of my professional role, okay? I've worked in clinical dentistry for more than a decade in a private office. I've worked in public health. In a clinic, I've worked with our state Head Start programs, and I've sat down one-on-one with parents of these children who've had to go into the OR numerous times to have dental disease treated. I worked as a clinical researcher on a caries cavity study for pregnant women and young children, okay? I've seen fluorosis on adults. I had fluorosis myself, and you know, my teeth are very strong. And so from a self-esteem perspective, yes, it bothered me somewhat, but what didn't bother me was having my teeth drilled because they were so strong they didn't need drilled. And so I do want to point that out as a personal side. Lastly, I'm a mom who believes in fluoridation, okay? I have a 3-year-old and I have a 6-year-old. And in my house, we don't use GMOs. We use organic meats and dairy. We don't use artificial sweeteners. My kids are limited on screen time, and they are not allowed to use lotion with parabens in it, okay? But the one thing we do use is fluoride. We use it topically and we use it systemically because I've seen it work and I know that it works, okay? So since they were born, maybe before they were born, and definitely since they got their first tooth, they were using fluoride, and I know that it works. It's a safe and effective addition to our community water that will help the teeth, okay? So I do want to thank you guys for your time and thank the Water Authority for this consideration.
Janet Wright.
Excuse me. Good evening, and I thank everyone for coming out to listen to this issue. I'm going to take a different perspective on the whole value of fluoride. I'm a dental hygienist. I'm a public health dental hygienist since 2011. I've worked in private practice in clinical settings for about 27 years. I've been in the school districts ever since I graduated from college, working, educating children, educating parents, seeing what fluoride can do. I've seen school districts where they didn't have fluoride. I've seen the terrible things that have happened in those districts with all of the fluoride that the children didn't get. I implemented fluoride into a school district and took statistics for 10 years, and the rate of dental decay had decreased by 10%, and that was just in a few years. And I do believe that it is obtained by the fluoride that the kids were taking systemically because it was a very rural community. I've worked with low-income families all my life, educating them. I feel that the fluoride in the water is a very good thing for us to do. We have big issues in our surrounding communities with access to dental care for all of our ages. There are very few dental specialists in our area to help. We have to travel 1 to 2 hours for good dental care for our children. Fluoride in the water can help prevent many children from dental disease and pain. I started using my public health dental hygiene practitioner license in 2011. I started with 12-month-old babies. Babies that were not even a year old, 4 to 6 cavities. And this is in Crawford County at our Early Head Start program. I have been educating and applying fluoride varnish to these young children to help prevent dental disease for many years now. I have seen a slight decrease in the amount of dental cavities in our youngest population, and I see an increased awareness in our communities around due to the dental fairs. Parents are starting to realize the importance of good dental health. If we can educate our public on how dental disease is caused, then we can greatly reduce the amount of dental decay in our communities, along with the importance of drinking fluoridated water. Water helps neutralize the acids in our mouths caused by our intake of sugar, which everybody has already agreed upon.
15 seconds.
By putting fluoride in the water, it will help to reduce the decay, and even further, because people would not just get the benefits of neutralizing acids in our mouths, but it will also increase the strength of our soft spots in our teeth caused by acids in our mouths. The benefit will not only just help our children's disease, but it will also help benefit the elderly people in our community as well. Thank you.
The final portion will take about 5 minutes only. We're going to give each side 2 minutes to summarize, and only 2 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. You tired yet? Yeah. 2 minutes. Who'd like to go first? I'll give you a choice. All right. You want to go first?
No, I want to go second.
Dr. Johnson? He'd like you to go first. Okay. All right. 2 minutes, please, Dr.
Well, again, I know it's a late evening, and thank you all for coming out and being so attentive and bringing forth all of your questions. Just want to remind people again, you've seen a lot of studies here, you've seen a lot of data. One of the things to remember is that all of the studies there that were quoted, those are studies done outside of the United States. Also, I think Dr. Lung mentioned about the studies in China. When studies that were performed outside the United States meet our criteria, our strict criteria for publishing, people want to publish them here because we have the credibility. Studies that are published outside of the United States that are not able to be published over here have a lot of issues, and I think those have been pointed out. Again, if you look at the EPA data, you'll see what that is. The other thing is that we have had 75 years of community water fluoridation in the United States. We've had lots of experience, probably about 2/3 to 75% of people are consuming fluoridated water right now. We know in Crawford County we have a lot of dental disease, more than other areas that are fluoridated. We know that we have higher cancer rates. We have all of these things here. We know that we don't have higher IQs than those fluoridated communities. So we know from 75 years of experience that fluoridation has benefited those people in those communities, and they don't have all of these effects that we've been hearing about. All of us here have a choice. We can decide, and you're out here to decide on this issue. What we are advocating for is people who have had all these dental problems in Crawford County who can really benefit from this and don't have a voice.
20 seconds, Doctor.
We say that we don't want people deciding for us, so we want to decide, but you're deciding for all of them. All of those people who are suffering from increased dental problems, you are deciding that they don't get that benefit. The Nexo study that was mentioned, they're going to people's houses every day, or not every day, going to people's houses and helping them there. They're paying a lot of taxes to help that happen. We can't pay any additional taxes to give people better dental care. Fluoridation is 24 cents per household per month.
Thank you. Doctor, you've got 2 minutes.
Thank you. Don't start yet. I want to find the slides.
Tell me when you're ready.
You know, one of the sad, well, first of all, it's a wonderful, yeah, I'm ready. Thank you. It's a wonderful meeting, and I agree with everybody that this is a wonderful exercise in democracy. But one of the things which disheartens me is that you've heard two sets of evidence. Evidence about benefit to teeth, and evidence about the possible damage to a child's brain. I cannot for the life of me understand how lightly both the promoters, who I've asked many times to provide the green flags, the evidence which dismisses all the 300 flags, but the rest of you, those who are in favor of fluoridation, how can you take so lightly what I'm saying? I mean, I've studied this for 21 years. I don't have an axe to grind here. But if fluoride is damaging children's brains, shouldn't that make you, A, pause, and as far as the Water Board is concerned, to do your homework? I mean, it's not enough. I mean, the dismissal that we saw in the editorial, the dismissal by Johnny, they're very pleasant people. I'm not anything personal against them. But you can't just cavalierly dismiss the possibility that we're deliberately adding a toxic substance to the drinking water which could damage children's brains. The very least, you should study this very, very carefully indeed, and just don't settle for superficial arguments. Don't accept authority. One of the things that has happened, which directly relates to what Denise has said, since 1952, the United States government and all the professional bodies which fall into line with official policy is the promotion of fluoridation. That has included not financing absolutely basic studies on health. We get endless studies on teeth. We get very few studies. So when you're saying there's no studies in America that looked at IQ, yes, you haven't done it. The absence of study is not the same as absence of harm. The countries which are doing this studies, China, India, have not got a fluoridation practice to defend. We have a fluoridation practice to defend, and we don't do the correct studies. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Where's that gentleman that's 74? Where'd he go?
I'm right here.
Huh? My mother told me one time, she says, this getting old is not for sissies. Pretty right, wasn't it? Huh? Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, give yourselves a hand. Wonderful, wonderful audience. Beautiful. Secondly, we thank the board. Thank you, board, for doing this for us. And a very hearty thank you to the panels, both the con and the pro. We thank you very, very much for being here. Thank you. And one more thank you is for cooperating with me. You made my job a little easier tonight. Thank you. Have a good evening.